Welcome to episode 142 of Coffee and Co-Read, your source for all things literary with Kristen
and Catherine, where we believe there's nothing better than a hot coffee and an awesome book. Join us for a virtual book club where we take one book a month and dive into all of the drama, adventure, and romance we can find. Hey, Kristen.
Hi, Catherine.
So, this week we kind of thought we'd talk about book editions. I know this has, I think, come up before. We've talked about it with Sarah J. Maas and like the extra chapters that she has when her books come out. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's less of a thing with these books. Like the new books, there aren't 45 million editions, but they do have like the sprayed edges is a big thing that I feel like the first time I saw sprayed edges, I think was with the like Fourth Wing original book that had the dragons on it.
Yeah.
And now, like, every book you can buy has sprayed edges.
Yeah, and you can even, like, buy, like, go on Etsy and buy, like, special editions that have sprayed edges. Like, just you're buying it from a private, like, artist, I'll say.
Yeah, which I think, like, that was around before, I feel like, I saw it. Like,
mass
publishers.
Market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, like, I love that. Like, because a lot of the artistic things, like I've seen a lot of Throne of Glass ones where like when you put them together, it's a whole scene.
Yes.
And they're beautiful. So like those ones I find super cool, but there is definitely this like capitalistic, like they're the marketers and everybody's doing it now. And 100% I did order the Onyx, whatever it's called. Storm?
Onyx Storm, yeah.
I ordered the one that has the little dragons on it. So, like, you know, I'm completely buying it up. But,
well, I guess sort of the thing is there's a whole aesthetic that is formed, especially since, like, the advent of TikTok and book talk especially. There's this whole aesthetic that surrounds, like, you know, book enthusiasts, right? Whereas like if you don't have a aesthetic library section in your house, then like what are you even doing? That sort of idea. And I don't like that.
Yeah.
And I find that all these sprayed edges, I love them. And I do love having like the pretty books and that sort of thing, but I find that it just puts so much pressure on people who just love books. Like, you know, all of these, like, you look on TikTok and everything on Book Talk is about the aesthetic.
Yeah.
And it's like, shouldn't we be focusing on the fact that people just love stories and love to read? Like, since when did it shift from loving a story for the story versus loving a book for the look?
Yeah.
And it sort of flies in the face of that whole don't judge a book by its cover sort of a thing, right?
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. And it kind of is hard, too, because, like, I feel like this book, when it came out, there were a lot of printing errors, I want to say, because they kind of rushed to get it out, and then like it did have the black sprayed edges, and that like was rubbing off on people's hands while they were reading the book, like, so it seems like it wasn't set super well, or it just wasn't done very well. It was done too fast, kind of thing. So yeah, it's definitely interesting. I was just gonna say, like, that's like the I guess paperback of Fourth Wing has come out now, and it has like, I think it has dragons on the edge or something, and it's literally been in and out of my cart so many times because I'm like, do I want this book? Do I only want it because the edges are pretty? Like, why am I even thinking about buying another copy of it when I'm pretty sure I have 2 copies? Well, yeah, I do have 2 copies of Fourth Wing anyway. And Rebecca Yarros, like, she does have an extra chapter in each of the new editions or newer editions of Fourth Wing. But she is one of those authors that says that, like, it's going to be on her website at some point. So, like, I'm less worried about reading the chapter kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I get that it's a business, but, like, this whole making all these a million editions of it and, like, making sprayed edges editions, making different chapter editions, like, just so that people will go out and buy multiple copies, it just feels a little bit like you're taking advantage. But I also understand that's, like, the nature of consumerism.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that is capitalism and consumerism. It's making the things that people want.
Yeah, so, and it's like, it's always kind of been a thing with books because, like, they always have the, like, hardcovers, and then you have to wait for the paperbacks. And, like, I'd much prefer paperbacks in general.
Yeah, but they're easier to read.
Yeah, but, like, Fourth Wing paperback came out well after Iron Flame came out. So it's like, it only recently came out. So if you actually waited, it would take forever.
Yeah. Anyway, I guess we're part of the problem too, because they come out with them and we're like, yes, give me all of them.
But they're pretty. Like, I can't be mad at them because I love them in some ways. But yeah, it's just like, I get to a point where I'm like, I don't know if I want or need a book anymore, or if I'm just being sucked in and I'm like, why would I buy this?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I am getting the pretty Onyx Storm one, so.
I hope I get it, because I ordered it through Amazon. And I think that a lot of, last time around, I think a lot of people ordered through Amazon, and a lot of people's orders got canceled.
Oh.
So, but I also feel like we're probably going to end up going to the store and buying physical ones anyway.
Exactly.
So if it doesn't come, it doesn't come.
Yeah. Okay.
So I guess we will get into this week. Just a heads up, it is not a spoiler-free zone, and things are getting saucy this week. So we are reading Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros, chapter 27 to 39. It is week 3 with this book. So last week, we always say it, but it was an action-packed week. I think Varrish enacted his punishment on Violet and, like, used her signet as a punishment and made her sort of keep firing her lightning over and over and over and over and over again until she overheated and almost died. All because she wouldn't produce Andarna. Then kept her and Xaden apart a whole bunch. Did they do that?
Yeah.
You know, had her do some land nav, put him on duty, like, just a couple of different things to try and keep them apart. Her sister Mira ended up getting placed at Xaden's outpost. We learned a whole bunch of stuff on wards and all those things. And then last going off, they had their torture training session. And Varrish sort of oversteps his boundaries, tries to use Dane to torture them. He refuses. They escape with the help of Nolan, who is like the head mender that Violet has known for years and years. And they escape. And then last going off, they learn in Battle Brief that there was an attack at Samara, which is where Xaden and Mira are stationed. And Violet freaks out and is single-minded and needs to go there because she's afraid Xaden is hurt. And Professor Devara sort of gives that hint that Xaden has been injured.
Like, kind of, if you're really, really looking for it.
Like, does, like, a really intentional blink.
Yeah. I'd be like, so it's Xaden, right? You're saying it's like, you'd think you'd confirm it before you just like run out of the classroom. I'd be like, so it was Xaden? Yeah, okay, goodbye.
Well, so that's the thing. So like, get sort of a visual confirmation, quote unquote, from Devara, the prof, that Xaden has been injured, and she's like, nope, I have to go, because she can't think about anything else other than the fact that Xaden is hurt. And so much so that she doesn't even take a coat. Bodhi has to stop and give her his coat, and then she gets on Taryn and they fly.
I was so mad when I read this the first time and she did this. I was like, you're a fucking idiot. You're going to be in so much goddamn trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. So we start off with an excerpt from the Field Guide to Dragonkind. So by third year, a rider must have complete control over their shields. Otherwise, they are susceptible to being taken over by their dragon's emotions. Mm-hmm. So, and we're going to get into it a little bit, but like, this part really bothered me. So like, we do know that from the first book that Violet is susceptible, and all riders are susceptible to being overtaken by their dragon's emotions. As we saw in Fourth Wing, when Violet is sort of overcome with lust when Taryn and Scale are doing it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it happened to her in book 1. Mm-hmm. So I guess the assumption is that it's happening again. But again, we'll get into it because I have thoughts.
Yeah.
So Violet gets to Samara. It's 8 hours later. Like, they hauled ass to get there. Mm-hmm. And they get there just before nightfall, and she's like in a panic. But she also knows that part of the panic is Taryn's panic.
Yeah.
But like, she can't, like, because Taryn is panicking over Scale. Mm-hmm. But she can't separate hers from his. So she gets to the base and she sees Mira first, so she knows Mira is okay, and then she demands to know where Xaden is and if he's okay. And like, Mira's just exasperated with her because she like confirms, like, you didn't have leave, did you? And like knows that she's gonna be in a lot of trouble when she gets back to school. But she also like can see how worried Violet is, so she directs her to the sparring gym. And she thinks, when she is directed to the sparring gym, like, oh my god, they must have made a makeshift infirmary because so many people are injured and blah, blah, blah. But when she gets there...
Like you would think.
Yeah. When she gets there, it's literally Xaden and Garrick sparring. And Xaden is kicking Garrick's ass.
Yeah.
And, like, it's almost like she doesn't really, like, it's like it doesn't compute. She's like... she sees him and sees he's okay, and she's like, I need my hands on him. Mm-hmm. Like, just to make sure. But then it sort of filters in a little bit that, like, then she starts to get pissed at herself that he isn't hurt. And, like, she let herself get all up in a tizzy about him possibly being hurt.
Yeah.
So, like, she approaches the mat where they're fighting, and he sees her, and he just immediately, like, punches Garrick in the nose, and is like, we're done now. And, and he just goes over, and he's like, are you okay? Like, why are you here? And he was like, I have my shields up, I'm sorry. Like, she couldn't get in touch with him the closer she got, because he had his shields up. And that's why she sort of couldn't contact him. But, like, she starts to visibly shake. And she feels then, like, Taryn's emotions are overwhelming her. So, like, this is what bothers me. So, like, we read how she felt and how she reacted when she found out that Xaden was hurt. Mm-hmm. And it was not Taryn that urged her out of that classroom.
No.
It was completely self-directed.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm annoyed that they're... Like, I don't even know why they had to do it, apart from getting them from one location to another. Like, in a minute...
Yeah.
She's gonna be like, you know, she's like, right now she's overwhelmed with Taryn's emotion. So Xaden just like hugs her and then walks her into the showers in the change room and just dunks her under cold water to try and like help get her shields up to block Taryn out.
Yeah.
Apart from him needing that reason to get her under the showers, I don't understand why we had this. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't understand why all of a sudden she can't. Now it's all Taryn. Yeah. Now her emotions are all Taryn's. When originally, no, she got up of her own volition. Yeah. She's the one who, like, she is the reason Taryn knew in the first place. Right? Because when she found out Xaden was injured, she mind linked to Taryn to, like, let him know, and Taryn gets pissed, and she's like, I'm out of here. And Taryn goes and picks her up. So, like, that was entirely her. So I'm annoyed that now they're sort of trying to backtrack and be like, oh, well, no, it was Taryn. But it wasn't.
Yeah. You could almost take it and be like, you could read it as it is her own emotion, and she's just like overwhelmed with the fact that he's okay, and maybe she's like thinks it's Taryn's emotion, but it's not. Like, that's kind of how you interpret it. That's how I want to take it. It's not, right? Because I completely agree. Like, she left, and she would have left if Scale and Taryn were mated or not. She was going. Yeah. Which is why, like, it's just a convenient thing that, spoiler alert, gets her out of trouble.
Yes, which I understand. Like, I completely understand using it as an excuse.
Oh, 100%.
I don't understand, apart from him getting her in the shower, I don't understand why they have to manifest it.
No, I completely
You know what
agree.
I mean? Like, yeah, they could say that that's why. Yeah. But it doesn't actually have to be true.
Which, I guess I kind of, like, skipped over this part a little bit, because I was just like, yeah, that was never part of it. Like, I don't know. I agree. I don't think it's necessary. And it's only this one moment that she's actually, like, overwhelmed with Taryn's emotion. It's no other time. So it just... It's to get her in the shower.
Yeah. Anyway. So, he dunks her in the cold water in the shower off, like, the change rooms of the gym. And he, like, orders her to put up her shields. And, like, she says, like, it's a monumental effort. But she manages to do it, like, brick by brick to put up her shields until Taryn is blocked out. And Xaden is equally mad at her because... she told him that, like, she didn't have leave. Yeah. So he's pissed that she has put herself in harm's way. But then he sees that she's not wearing her own flight jacket. He's like, whose is that? And gets really possessive and jealous. Yeah. That makes her angry because she's like, I literally, like, just left without leave. So I'm going to be in shit. Because I was worried about you.
And you're completely fine.
And you're completely okay. But you're now, like, it's like you're concerned about whose jacket this is. Like, come on, dude. Like, I obviously care about you. But she's like, look at the patches on the jacket. It's obviously fucking Bodhi. And, like, she's like, I can't believe you're pulling this territorial bullshit about the jacket. And then she rants about how she's also annoyed at herself for leaping to conclusions. And that, like, he would have waited for all the information before leaving. Mm-hmm. And he just said, like, he showed her that he has this big old scar down along his arm. And he shows that, like, he was wounded, but he was mended. And he must have, like, they had to wait for a mender to come from a different base. So the battle brief information probably was sent to Basgiath before the mender got there. Mm-hmm. So, like, according to everybody at Basgiath, he was injured, but then the mender came and now he's not.
And he does say, like, he could have lost his arm. Yeah. If it was a bad injury. So, like, You're like, okay, fine. It's okay that she's there.
Yeah. But then he also tells her that, like, she's wrong. Like, when it comes to her, he would have done the exact same thing. And that he's never in control when it comes to her.
No.
Which is cute.
That is cute.
And then he tells her, like, he just says, like, you love me. You know, like, and he does that over and over again. He's like, you do love me. And then he finally kisses her. And, like, she is happy because she said this is the first time he's kissed her without her sort of initiating it.
Mm-hmm. Even though the first week he was like, if you asked me to kiss you all the time, I would, or he said if it was up to him, their mouths would be attached because he would never stop kissing her. So it's like, you don't need to be insecure about it.
Yeah.
Not that it's super easy to not be insecure, because it's fucking not.
Yep.
But still.
Yeah. So, like, they start undressing each other, and he tries to... I know, right? He tries to pull away, but, like, she really wants him, and she just asks him, like, not to make her beg. Yeah. And he just tells her that, like, he promised he wouldn't weaponize sex for her. Mm-hmm. And, like, she's the one in Fourth Wing. She said she cannot separate emotions and sex. So, like, he doesn't want to use that in his favor to get her back, right? Like, he knows they still have issues, and he doesn't want sex sort of clouding that. And he just says he's fighting for them, for the state of their relationship. Because I guess he knows that it's not just physical.
Yeah.
And he also tells her that, like, it kills him to keep his hands off of her. Like, when he knows how, like, wet and perfect she is. And, like, he tells her that, like, he dreams of the sounds she makes.
Because she's in the shower. She's so wet.
Ah!
Sorry.
That's funny. But, like, he dreams of the sounds that she makes before she comes, and the color of her, the color that her eyes go when she's in the throes of passion. And, like, he wakes up starving for her. And it's everything that, I guess you want to hear.
If somebody said that to me in real life,
I know.
Would kill them.
Yeah. Push them out a window.
Sorry. Insecure.
But Violet just sort of tells him that, like, if he wants to fight for her, then he should be the one that takes a chance without knowing how she feels. And she's like, you need to risk your heart first this time and just take what I'm offering you. So she's just sort of like, you know, right now, this is what I'm willing to give in our relationship. And, like, you can't dictate that it's all or nothing. Because right now, that's sort of what he's doing. He's saying, I don't want us having sex unless we're together. But she is saying, well, I want the sex.
Yeah.
And also, she makes it clear to the reader that he still has not said I love you.
Yeah, which is wild.
Ever.
Yeah.
So, like, she legit has no idea how he feels. And, I mean, we can all say, oh, what a dumbass. Of course he loves her.
Yeah.
But, you know, I guess when you're in it, you feel differently.
Well, you can only go off of, like, what people do and say. Like, he's not having sex with her. He hasn't said he loves her. Like, you're like, you may be telling me that you want to keep your mouth attached to mine, but you're not showing me in any way.
Yeah. That's true. So then she tells him that, like, she was just terrified he was hurt. And, like, right now, she doesn't just want him, like, she needs him. Like, she needs that validation that he's okay. Mm-hmm. So, he caves, and they make out some more. And then, I'm not getting into the nitty-gritty of the sex.
What?
But, like, there's a lot of, oh, harder, deeper. I'm like, oh, this is faster, so fucking stronger. Good. And Xaden just tells her that no matter how much she needs him, he needs her more.
I think it's because I've had, like, shitty relationships in the past. but I know this is such a, like, snowflake thing to say, but I get super triggered when people say, like, I love you more, I need you more. Like, it's not a competition. Yeah. Love isn't, like, that, I hate it so much, and it takes me out of everything. And I know it's 100% my own past, but it just, like, it was used against me to invalidate how much I loved the person by saying that they loved me more. Mm-hmm. So anytime anybody says it, I'm like, you're so manipulative. Stop it.
I think it's definitely can be used in a, like, gaslighting fashion. Yeah. For sure. In a manipulative way.
But so many people find it romantic that, like, it completely gives me the ick.
Well, it's one of those things like, I love you more. No, I love you more. No, I love you. It's
you like, hang up. You hang up.
Yeah.
You will know what that is if you're old enough.
Yeah. So I never thought of it that way, but I see absolutely where you're coming from. Yeah. But, like, I also feel like at this moment, if she has any doubts, mm-hmm. like, I don't understand, like, I do understand how she has doubts. He hasn't vocalized how he feels. But at the same time, when he says stuff like that,
yeah,
like, if she's thinking that she loves him and she needs him, and he's like, mm-hmm. whatever you feel, I feel it more, then I feel like, girl, like, open your eyes.
Yeah, and I feel like it's kind of a theme in this book that doesn't really happen until a bit later, that, like, she's super insecure about their relationship. Mm-hmm. Kind of happens later.
Yeah.
And it pisses me off because I'm like, you're like a badass. You're like, why are we suddenly being afraid that he doesn't love you when clearly, like, yeah, I don't know. I don't love that happens later either. So it is kind of annoying that it becomes a theme with her.
Yeah. So she climaxes. Her lightning goes off as per usual.
I can't even imagine how awkward. Like, she's the only lightning wielder.
Yeah.
Like, her mother knows when she orgasms at, like, if she's masturbating, does just lightning just go off, like, just some random, like, at school? They have their own rooms.
That'd be awkward.
Right?
It's like their version of smell.
Oh, true. Oh. We hate it.
Yeah. So, she thinks to herself that she loves him, but she isn't ready to tell him yet. And then he tells her that he can't and won't ever give her up. So again, like, it's that, like, they say, like, show, don't tell.
Yeah.
And I feel like he's showing it, not telling it, which is what you sort of would want, but she seems to want him to tell.
Yeah, I guess it's like, I don't know, like the first time you say, I love you to the person that you're with, and, like, if they don't say it back right away, you're like, oh, I just put myself out there and you don't care.
Yeah.
So, like, I get both sides of it, I guess, but yeah. I'm like, he clearly is telling you and showing you that he loves you.
Yeah. So they finish, and he just asks, like, she asks, like, what are they gonna do now? And it's really funny because he's like, 3 options, and I would have not picked the option she picked, but 100%. Like, whatever.
Stupid.
So he says, option 1, give me a minute and we'll go again.
Perfect.
Round 2, go back to his room and they'll go again. Or round 3, they can get dressed and go to the rendezvous point and deliver the daggers that she brought during her last visit. And of course she picks option 3. And he really wanted her to pick option 2.
Fair. I did too. Especially since, like, we're like halfway into the book, and this is like the first time they're having sex.
Yeah. So we get now a excerpt from the Griffins of Poromiel, a study in combat. So Griffin Riders don't get signets, but they do have learned lesser magic, especially mind work.
Sounds scary.
And they should not be underestimated. So they get sort of like the ability to influence the mind, which is scary.
Yeah, I'm worried about that.
Yeah. So Taryn and Violet are currently arguing because Taryn did not want Violet to go to the rendezvous point. He thinks it's too dangerous. And when they land, like, he won't even let her get off of him.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, nope, you're staying up here. Like, I agreed for you to come. I did not agree for you to get down. Which is hilarious, because then the Griffin Riders show up, and actually, when Violet finally speaks up, they're like, geez, you don't trust us? You won't even let her get down? Assuming that it's Xaden.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's Taryn.
And, like, Xaden doesn't even really say anything.
No.
He's like, yeah, it's me.
Yeah.
Which is cute.
It is cute. So, the Griffins, like, they land, then the Griffins come in and land, and the leader is the same woman from Resin. Her name is Serena. And Xaden actually gets mad at her for the attack on Samara. So that was Griffins that attacked Samara and injured him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
almost lost him an arm. Like, it's a big deal.
Yeah. And he said that, like, the reason he got hurt is because he, like, pivoted so that he wouldn't hurt them. Yeah. And her excuse is that even with his deliveries and shipments, they still need more daggers. Mm. And there are enough daggers at Samara to supply 100 flyers. But Xaden argues that those daggers are protecting and powering their wards. So they obviously can't steal them all, because then that'll make their wards weaker. Yeah. So we learned last week that the daggers are made from, like, a special alloy that help to strengthen the magic of the wards wherever they're placed. So right now they're placed at Samara because that's the edge of the ward to sort of strengthen it. And he just says, like, if it happens again, he will not hesitate to kill the Griffin Riders. And Violet then pipes up that if the wards come down, the Griffin Riders will condemn everybody to death. And, like, I sort of found, I don't think Violet should have spoke up at that moment, because I find that that's sort of like
they don't have wards.
Insensitive, yes. Yeah. Because right now, Poromiel is outside of the wards. They are being attacked and killed daily. Mm-hmm. So they are doing what they have to do to survive by stealing those daggers. Do I think it's right that they're taking all the daggers and leaving other people unprotected? No, but at the same time, that's what that's what their kingdom is doing. Yeah. Everybody outside of their kingdom is naked to the threat. So, yeah. Like, her saying, well, if you take the stuff that powers our wards, you're leaving all of us open to attack and all of our civilians. But, like, all the Griffin Rider civilians are always open for an attack. Yeah. So, like, I don't think it was the right thing to say.
No, I also she talks a lot when I'm like, this is not your turn. Like, I find that she just sometimes should just close her mouth. And I get it's like her character and everything, but I'm also like, man, it's not smart. You're just pissing people off.
Yeah. Anyway, Serena then, like, finally notices after she talks, says, like, oh, I see you there, and tells her thanks for Resin. But a girl next to her that Violet had noticed was sort of giving Xaden, like, lovey-dovey eyes, gives her sort of a stink eye. So, like, she noticed that this girl was looking at Xaden, like, all doughy-eyed. Mm-hmm. And initially she was like, same girl, same. But yeah. Then this girl sort of gives her a bad look. And that girl, so they call her Kat, tells Xaden that she was like, oh, so this is her. Like, oh, she's striking, I'll give you that. But I don't see the big deal.
Which is so bitchy. Like,
yeah. Also insinuating that, like, she knows about her when Violet doesn't know anything about this girl.
Yeah.
And then they have a conversation, I guess all of them. The conversation ends with Xaden revealing, like, there's gonna be casualties in war. And he was like, so if you're asking me if I would rather sacrifice Poromish people rather than my people, absolutely I would.
Yeah.
And he says if they attack and try to take daggers from them again, he will cut off the supply he's providing. So, like, he's really serious about this. And we can only assume that part of it is because Violet, his cousin, his friends are all living under the wards right now.
Yeah.
So they accuse him of not caring about the fight, but he assures them that he is doing what he can. He's trying to complete a forge so that they can make their own daggers. And Kat pipes up that he has had what Viscount Tecarus has asked for and won't comply. And then she implies that it's because he's smitten. But then she also says, but I know you better than that. And he just ignores it and says, here are your daggers. I'm keeping one. Garrick will be handling the drop-offs from now on. And they go to leave. And Violet tells Serena to, like, stay alive. And Serena says, yeah, like, you too. And then she tells Kat it's time to go. But instead of calling her Kat, she calls her Catriona. Mm-hmm. Which jogs a memory that Violet had of Bodhi saying he's never seen Xaden care about someone like her before, including Catriona. And then she clues in that Kat and Xaden have been together.
Good.
Yeah.
That's what we love in a book.
So now here we're getting this other woman
jilted
trope.
ex.
Yeah. This trope.
Yeah.
That's annoying as fuck.
So exciting.
Yeah.
And, like, she has to be bitchy. And then Violet is, like, insecure. And it's like, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where we are.
So we get a excerpt now from the Basgiath War College Code of Conduct. Cadets who are found absent without leave can be court-martialed by their chain of command if they are not executed on sight. So, pretty severe and significant
punishment.
For what Violet has done.
Yeah.
So they're flying back to with, like, Xaden after the drop off, and Violet is, like, anxious about Xaden's past because obviously Kat is beautiful, and at one point Xaden did choose her, and, like, Taryn tries to make her feel better and is like, 2 dragons chose you, so, like, you're pretty cool. But, like, he doesn't actually say the word cool, but, like,
no, I interpretation. Love it. It's perfect.
But it doesn't really make her feel any better.
Yeah.
So they get back to base, and Violet and Taryn plan to leave in the morning, but in the meantime, Xaden's like, I guess we need to talk. But surprisingly, she doesn't want to talk about Kat, and he's sort of like, oh, thank God. But, like, if it were me, and this was something that was eating me up, and he gives me that chance to talk about it, I would want to talk about it.
100%. Like, if that's something you're thinking about, and you're not going to see him for a while, like, obviously it's something you should bring up.
Mm-hmm.
But let's let it fester.
Yeah. So, she asks what the Viscount wants, because this has been a thing, right? Like,
yes.
The Viscount it's been known that he has a luminary that they can use.
Which we know what a luminary is now.
Do we?
No, we just looked it up very desperately, like, 2 weeks ago.
Yep, still not really sure, but that's fine.
Yeah.
So we've known that he has one and that they're in talks to try and use it, but apparently what he wants, Xaden is unwilling to give. And 2 weeks ago, because it's been ages since I read this book, I assumed that it was like Xaden's hand in marriage, right?
Yes, yeah, because I was like, oh my god, are you being like the best reader ever? And you were like, no, I just can't remember.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was my assumption. But that's not correct. That's not what he wants. He wants Violet. He wants to see Violet wield her lightning. That's what he wants.
Which doesn't seem that bad.
It doesn't seem that bad. But Xaden is like, that's out of the question. I refuse to risk you. And I would rather lose the war and everybody die than risk any part of you. And again, I'm just like, girl, you don't know how he feels? Like, come on, he loves you.
Yeah.
He also then, like, slips her one of the daggers, the one that he took, and just says, like, keep it hidden. Like, this is just in case.
Keep it secret. Keep it safe.
Yeah. But it's funny because she's like, I literally have lightning. They can kill Venom. I don't need this. And he's like, just in case.
And we're like, this is going to become an issue, isn't it?
It is, yes. So he asks if they have anything else to talk about. And she's like, well, wait, yes. So she tells him all about how the Battle of Zolia got leaked at Battle Brief and how Markham tried to pass it off as propaganda and as an exercise. About how Nolan mended Jack Barlow, who's now alive.
Yeah, I forgot that happened last week.
Yep. How Varrish punched her shoulder out of socket. Yeah. And then she was like, also, there's an elixir that cuts off communication with our dragons and our signets that they used in, like, navigation and then again when they were had their torture session. But, like, I didn't think that was new. I thought they all went through that.
No, apparently that is new, but it makes me think it's definitely going to come up again. Like, it's going to come up later on in different books, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Like, are they going to weaponize it into, like, a mist or something?
Oh, yeah. So she also mentions that Dane challenged her and that Eric, the crown prince, who is at school in secret, knows about Venom. So, like, all of that, she's like, we need to talk.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the end. Then we just skip to the next day. So, like, we don't know.
We don't see them cuddle.
Or more.
Which makes me mad anytime it happens.
Because, like, what? That conversation of all of that couldn't have taken all night.
No.
So, like, I don't know.
Cuddle.
Do more than that.
Well, yeah.
So, Violet and Taryn are approaching the school the next day. And she's nervous about what her punishment is going to be.
It could literally be death.
Yeah. Death on sight.
Good.
Taryn doesn't think she should get a punishment since she was pushed by his panic, which I think they're like... they're
planting the seed.
I think they're just trying to believe the narrative.
Yeah.
It's like, this was all my fault. And it's like, no, it wasn't, dude. But I feel like they're just trying to push it so that they believe it.
Yeah. Like, she would have gone anyway.
Anyway, but she just says, like, she's prepared to take whatever they give. So they land, like, above the gauntlet area. And the first year squad that's in her wing and in her squad are practicing on the gauntlet, and she gives Sloane some advice before meeting up, like coming across Professor Emeterio, and he just tells her, he was like, you really pissed off leadership.
Which is great.
And he's like, even though I don't have favorites, if I did, I would tell that favorite to stress the undimmable bond of her legendary battle dragon as a reason why she left her post. And he said, I also hope that another favored student, if I had one, would be teaching you to shield, would be teaching her stronger shielding. And I'm like, Xaden? So, like, is Xaden another favorite student that is not a student anymore?
I guess so.
And he
can't be talking about Dane, right? He's got to be talking about Xaden.
Yeah.
Because last week he's the one that was like, or the first week he's the one that was like, yeah, Sloane, I'm not going to let you fight her because I know who trained her. And we're like, yeah, but she's badass on her own. But I feel like this could have been a great opportunity for her to be like, oh yeah, I'll tell them that it's because of my dragon, not because I needed to run. Like, him telling her, she could have been like, that's a good idea, instead of the bullshit that we got.
So she heads to her room because she wanted to, like, get cleaned up before presenting herself. But Varrish and his 2 cronies that are always there with him are waiting for her in the hallway, like, across from her room. And it just so happens that Professor Kaori was walking down the hall as well and decides to stick around. Thank God.
What class is Professor Kaori again?
Is he, like, History of Dragons? Or, like...
Oh,
or the one who, like, explains the different types of dragons, maybe?
Yeah.
I think?
Yeah, that makes sense. Because we didn't really see a lot of him.
No.
I don't feel like.
Yeah, but I think he's the one that teaches them, like, this is the red dragon with the weird tail. This is what this dragon does.
If you see an orange, don't look them in the eye.
Yeah. So, Varrish searches her bag. Luckily, that dagger that she has is, like, in her jacket.
Xaden's jacket.
Yes, she is wearing Xaden's jacket. He refused to let her wear Bodhi's.
So, like, did they just, like, leave Bodhi's to be destroyed? Like...
No, she has Bodhi's.
Oh, okay.
It's in her bag.
Good.
So he also then berates her for wearing Xaden's jacket. And he's like, you're impersonating an officer. That's against the rules. And she starts panicking because she knows that they're going to take the jacket next and search it because it's quote unquote not hers. And she's panicking because that's where the dagger is. And, like, how is she going to hide that? And she hears Rhiannon's door inch open. Thank God Rhiannon lives next door. And gestures sort of to the dagger. It's not in, I don't think it's in a pocket. I think it's like...
It's like a hidden pocket. But, like, obviously with the
I don't even
jacket,
know if
you'd be able to...
I don't even know if it's a hidden pocket. When I read it, I sort of interpreted it as, like, almost like a loop. Like, on the outside of the jacket.
Oh, but then he'd just immediately see it while she's wearing it. I thought that it was, like, Xaden specifically had, like, a pocket made in his jacket for this type of weapon that most jackets don't have.
But then how would Rhiannon know that it's there if she's just gesturing to a part of her body where there's nothing?
Magic, I guess. Like, I don't know. Nothing makes sense.
Anyway, it's near her shoulder, so she's, like, sort of gesturing at it while everyone is sort of looking through her bag.
Yeah. And
a few seconds later, she hears Rhiannon's door close. And she's like, well, I guess I'm on my own. And so Varrish then demands the jacket. And Professor Kaori is, like, shocked that he's demanding a strip search. And Varrish is like, well, you know, she's impersonating an officer. So, like, you know, I'm allowed to search according to article blank dash section blank. Yeah. But he gets the number wrong, so Violet corrects him.
I fucking love it. I love it so much that she, like, just knows all the rules. Mm-hmm. So good.
But then she also was like, she was like, there's no name patch on this jacket, and there's no, like, section number, like, whatever, so I'm technically not impersonating anybody. And Varrish sort of wants Kaori to move on, but Kaori, like, indicates that he's gonna stay, because power must always be kept in check. And Varrish is like, do you think I'm abusing my power right now? And Kaori is like, no, I think you abuse it all the time.
I love him.
I do too.
I forgot who he was for a second, but I do love him.
And I'm thinking, like, dude, I can't believe that you're saying that to this guy. Like, that's wild.
Yeah. He's batshit. I wouldn't say that.
No. So they go through the jacket and there's nothing there. The dagger is gone. But, like, Varrish is saying, like, Violet, you still have to be court-martialed for leaving. But then Kaori jumps in. He's like, obviously, you haven't talked to Commandant Pancheck yet. She's not going to be punished for what was clearly the choice of her very powerful, very worried, very mated dragon. And they can't fault her for being unable to do something that even officers struggle with, aka, like, keep your dragon out from influencing your emotions. Because remember, a couple of chapters ago, part of the codex or whatever the code of conduct was, in year 3, they're expected to be able to do that. But obviously it's something that even, like, mature writers deal with.
Yeah.
And Varrish takes that as an insult because he's like, I don't struggle with it. And in fact, I influence my dragon. And then Kaori's like, well, that's interesting. Like, so does that mean that you influenced your dragon into burning that entire squad of riders after Parapet? And Varrish is just sort of like, and then just leaves.
Because it's true.
Yes, absolutely. And Kaori just tells Violet to be careful because she's obviously making enemies. And then just goes.
Doesn't she say something like, I don't think I really made that one or something? Like, it's like, I think he just came and was my enemy.
Yeah, she does. She says, I think he came like that, sir. Like,
yeah, it's just kind of funny. I like her sass.
Yeah. So, Violet is happy that she got to keep the jacket, and the dagger is gone. And Rhiannon, like, calls her into her room, and she has the dagger. And she actually managed to, like, pull it through the jacket, through the wall, without anybody noticing. And I'm just like, how do you not notice a floating dagger floating through a wall?
Right.
But it's fine. And Rhiannon, Riddick, and Sawyer, conveniently, are all in the room. And they ask what the dagger is for. And Violet caves and tells them everything. She tells them it's for killing Venom. And then just... Yeah.
I'm like, what the fuck? You can't just tell everybody. I was so mad at her in so many parts of this book.
Yeah. So, we get the Basgiath...
for her.
Yeah. We get the Basgiath Code of Conduct now, so only riders and certain scribes are allowed in the Riders Quadrant. Any unauthorized entry means death. So
this seems a bit wild.
It comes up a little bit later. But I guess there are a lot of secrets in the Riders Quadrant that they don't want people knowing about.
Yeah.
So she tells her squad everything, like those 3 people, everything, except for Eritia and about Brennan, because those are not her secrets to tell.
Yeah.
And they're shocked. And they verify it with their dragons, because all dragons know.
Which is wild.
So every dragon is keeping it from their rider implicitly. Yep. So they're like, is this true? And all of their dragons are like, yep, true. So the Empyrean, who's like the dragon leadership, they don't want any dragons telling their riders because they're actually split on whether to act or not. So like half the dragons want to go and fight and help, but the other half want to protect the hatchery and protect the wards that are in place. And they don't want to put their riders, none of them want to put their riders in harm's way, because making that link, like, it gets stronger and stronger with each bond. So like if your rider is in danger, you are in danger.
Yeah.
So that's sort of why the dragons aren't telling, because they can't decide what to do. They're also shocked that, like, that the entire country doesn't, like, know. They're like, how on earth can they keep this from us? Like, how can they keep such a huge secret? Like, as a kingdom.
Yeah.
But Sawyer's just like, man, he's like, I'm from the boonies. The only communications we get is, like, from those official releases from Basgiath. So, like, absolutely they can control the flow of information.
Mm-hmm.
And then she tells them all that she's sorry she lied to them and that they have every right to be angry with her. But Rhiannon tells her, like, I'm not mad at you. And Violet is, like, shocked. And she's like, but you should be. And I also appreciate this. Rhiannon's like, she's understanding. And she thinks, like, this must have been such a hard secret for you to keep. But, like, Violet's like, no, you should be mad at me. And Rhiannon's like, you're not allowed to make that call. Like, you're not, you don't get to control how I react.
Yeah.
And, like, Violet's like, oh my God, I don't deserve you.
Well, and it's just funny. You're like, why can you not see how this is exactly like your situation with Xaden where you're pissed?
Yeah.
And she's reacting differently and you are happy about it.
Yeah.
But for Xaden, you're like, fuck you.
Which she does recognize.
Okay.
She does, like, make that connection in her head.
Good.
She's like, this is exactly what happened with me and Xaden, but I got really mad at Xaden, and now I'm still mad at Xaden, which is sort of why she said to Rhiannon, like, you should be mad at me. And Rhiannon's like,
okay.
No. I don't have to if I don't want to. And so she does make that connection.
Okay.
So, like, they all then just jump into this, like, say savior/hero mode. They're like, we're gonna help you. And she's like, you don't have to. But they're like, no, like, you're researching to try and find a way to create another ward. We'll help you with that. But she just sort of, like, they decide they need a primary source from one of the first 6. But there's nothing older than 400 years in the archives, which is a problem. But then Riddick pipes up that there are journals in a sub-level vault, and he saw them listed on her mom's ledger back in Fourth Wing when they went to steal the battle maps for one of the games. She didn't know that sub-level vaults existed. So, obviously, breaking into them could get them killed.
Of course.
Yeah. So, they go ask Jesnia about the vaults, and she doesn't know about them either, but she'll try and get information while they keep searching. Over the next few weeks, Violet and Xaden are pulled apart. So she's forced into land navs and, like, other operations while Xaden is visiting her, and he is always working and on shift when she is in Samara. And once, they even forced both her and Taryn to stay behind, which made Taryn really cranky, but he never thought to leave without Violet. So, like, that's cute.
Yeah, which is, like, kind of, like, it came up when we were reading Fourth Wing. Her sister was like, you're gonna get in the way of your studies and shit. And I was like, why can't he just leave without her? But I get it. Like, it's not safe where she is, so, like, I guess.
Yeah.
But I am like, the 2 dragons should leave their riders and meet in the middle.
Yeah.
Have sex, and then return.
So, I guess the weeks pass, and all of a sudden it's threshing. And they're watching the first years bond with their dragons. So, Eric manages to get a blue clubtail, and Sloane bonds with a red daggertail. Jesnia actually sends them a message that she has the tome they requested. In other words, the information they need. But Violet has to take a shift, like, on watch, we'll say. And Rhiannon has squad leader's duties to do, so Riddick is like, I'll go talk to Jesnia. And Sawyer is, like, covering for them all, which I don't understand in any way, shape, or form, because apparently Riddick has to go on watch with Violet. He's like, I'll be there in a minute. I'll just go meet up with Jesnia first.
I don't know.
And she's like, okay. So then he goes to meet up with Jesnia first before going on watch with her. So why couldn't Sawyer go with her on watch until Riddick gets there and then swap out? I just don't get it.
I don't.
So their watch is the academic tower with the burn pit, where they burn riders' belongings when they die. So she climbs up the tower and says hi to the girl that she's relieving. And again, there's only one girl being relieved, so I don't understand why Riddick has watch as well. So it's going from 1 to 2.
Which, like, I don't understand.
I don't either. Anyway, her name is Aya. Aya?
But she was also in Resin.
Yes. So she was one of the 10 that flew to Resin. So she has got a rebel mark.
Relic, yeah. So she's also the one, I think last week, Violet got a letter that, like, she was really good friends with Xaden since they were children or some shit. Like, they're trying to give us more information about her.
Right.
So Violet always now is like, hey, we're friends.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny because at the beginning of this book, she mentioned how, like, half the people that she went with, she didn't even know their names.
Yeah.
So she's relieving Aya from duty, and then all of a sudden 4 infantry soldiers enter and block the exit. And both girls are like, you're not allowed here. So again, like we saw at the beginning of the chapter.
You're so smart.
I'm telling you. When it said that, like, no one else other than riders and very specific scribes are allowed in the riders quadrant. Now we've got 4 infantry soldiers in there, and they're not allowed to be there. Mm-hmm. But they say they have permission and are being paid well for delivering this message.
So who gave them permission, I wonder?
Yeah. So, Violet, so, like, they feel penned down because they, like, sort of go on the offense and start to, like, crowd her to attack. And Taryn just tells her to fight and that he's on the way. And her and Aya just go for them. So she's fighting one, and he's like, we have a message for you. And she's like, let me guess, the message is secrets die with the people who keep them. And he's like, oh my god, how did you know? And she's like, it's not original.
So stupid.
But I guess the only reason that we have this interaction is to sort of cement that it's Colonel Ados who is sending these people, because he has said that before and it's sort of been reiterated a couple of times.
Yeah. So
she kills one dude, and then she sort of has to fight another one. And I guess Aya also kills one dude. And then, but then Aya gets, like, attacked and stabbed. And Violet gets preoccupied hearing her scream. And then she falls and hurts her knee. But then she fights and manages to kill the one who stabbed Aya. So now there's one guy left. And he pushes her over the edge of the tower. And she's, like, dangling by her fingertips. And he's just telling her to let go. Because I guess I don't know why he doesn't just pry her fingertips off. But I guess she's too far.
Lion King style.
Yeah. But then she sees somebody stab the remaining guy in the spine. So it must go through.
We're like, oh!
She's
Riddick
saved!
finally came and saved her!
Yeah. Then we get an excerpt from the Book of Brennan. Most people think it's dragonfire that kills riders, but truthfully, it's gravity.
I love that one.
Anyway, so then we go right back, and it's not Riddick that saved her, it's Jack Barlow.
Of course.
So he stabbed a soldier, threw him over the tower, and grabs her and hauls her back in. And she's shocked that he saved her instead of letting her die. And he tells...
She killed him.
He just tells her that his first death was a second chance for him, so he kind of owes her. So he's like, this makes us even. And
I don't like it.
He leaves, and she's just sort of like, technically I owe him my life twice now. And I'm like, because I guess she killed him the first time, which means she owed him her life once. And now he saved her, so now she owes him twice. But he's being very different than how he was originally.
Yes, because originally he tried to kill her multiple times. Yeah, it's interesting.
So he leaves, and Riddick then finds her immediately. And he's like, what the hell happened? And she's like, well, Aya is dead. And unsurprisingly, she was also at Resin, which means now 5 out of 10 that flew to Resin are dead.
It's not great.
No.
Not good odds.
So she knows that it's all Ados is doing and tells Riddick that. And he feels bad that he wasn't there. And I'm like, yeah, somebody else should have been there. Like, what is Sawyer doing? I don't know. Anyway, he does tell her what Jesney had told him, that the journals are actually in the royal vault underneath the archives, and they need someone with King Towery's bloodline to get in. And Violet just says it's
impossible.
Well, Violet's like, it's lucky we have access to a prince who hates his father. Because, like, I don't think many people know that Eric is Eric.
No, it's like her and Dane immediately recognized him.
Yeah.
But most people just haven't noticed, which is kind of stupid, but okay.
Well, I mean, it's the same thing, remember, in Throne of Glass, when nobody realized that Aelin and Adian were related.
But
they look the same.
Bit different because, like, people have seen this kid. Like, he's been around. Like, her mother should recognize him when he comes in with the dragon. Like,
right.
All the higher up powers should recognize him.
But I guess if the first time the mom is seeing him is with his dragon,
it was only this week. Like, and maybe she did. Maybe she did recognize, and she was like, "Oh shit, I'm not going to be the one to tell the king."
But also, like,
that's the other thing.
She's not usually around that much.
No.
So, like, that's true. Maybe seeing him at threshing with his dragon is her first time seeing him. And remember, that's what he was waiting for, was threshing, because once he's bonded a dragon, like, even his dad can't argue with the dragon. So, like, now, if that is the first time she sees him and she does recognize him, not much she can do about it at this point.
Yeah. It's just funny because, like, I don't know, you'd think, like, the professors would know. But then again, like, it's this whole thing of nobody wants to get to know the first years because they all die. Mm-hmm. So I feel like people just aren't looking at him. Which is fair.
Yeah, and it could also just be, like, it doesn't seem like a type of place with a ton of technology. So maybe, like, pictures is not really something that they have.
Yeah.
So
it's not like he's on TV because he's the prince. Yeah.
So then we get an excerpt from the Guide to the Rider's Quadrant. Second years think they know everything, but really all they know is how to get killed.
It's great.
Yeah. So it's the next weekend, and she can finally see Xaden, and there's no conflict of schedules. And she tells him that she told her friends everything. And he's mad. Mm-hmm. But then she also tells him that she has plans to break into the Royal Archives that night. And Xaden's like, I don't think this is a good idea. And he was like, one, we haven't even asked Eric to help yet. And you already have a plan in place. And, like, also, there could be other scribes around. And, like, we would also have to take them, read them, and then break back in and put them back. And, like, on top of that, the plan is to go an hour before the archives close, so that would only leave them with an hour to get everything done.
Yeah. And this whole, like, bullshit about the archives being, like, poisonous and shit. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. It's adding a level of danger we didn't need, but okay.
No. Yeah.
So he does agree to help because he obviously doesn't want her in danger without him. And then they kiss. And in her head, this is her, like, choosing him because she loves him. Because I guess she was like, they were close and she kisses him, and this is sort of her telling him that, like, that last time when they had sex, it was not a fluke. It was, this is her actively choosing him and them in their relationship. And then she thinks, like, maybe he doesn't love her, but he does care about her. And I'm like, she's insane.
Yeah.
Like, he literally has told her that he would literally let the entire world burn as long as she's okay. And she's like, he doesn't love me.
Yep.
Anyway.
Girl math.
So they stop making out and Bodhi and crew arrive with Eric. But Eric, like, takes one look at Xaden with intense hatred and says he won't be doing anything that helps him. And it's then revealed that Xaden killed Alec, who is Eric's older brother, I think.
Yeah. I can't remember what Eric's actual name is. But
Eric's actual name is Eric.
Is it?
Yeah, he's going by a different name that's not Eric but Violet always just thinks of him as Eric. Because that is his real name.
Okay. So the king liked A names.
Yeah.
All of his children, A.
Yeah, I don't remember. There is another one, like one of the other... We learn his other brother's name, like the one that's going to inherit the throne, but I don't remember what it is.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
But according to Xaden, like, Alec was a traitorous prick, and that's why he killed him. So he deserved it. But,
which is what you should say when you've killed somebody's brother. Yeah. That's what you should say to their face.
Yeah. But, like, it's unfortunate because we don't learn anything else. Like, we don't learn anything more about what happened.
Yeah.
They do, however, manage to convince Eric to help by telling him they're stealing from his dad, who is the one person he hates more than Xaden. Yeah. So, this part goes by very fast. So they meet up with Jesnia later, and she only wants 4 of them in the archives because it'll draw less attention. So Xaden goes, Eric goes, Violet goes, and Imogen goes. And Rhiannon is like, I should go. I can levitate things and drag them through walls. But Imogen is like, useful. It is useful, but Imogen is like, I have a classified signet. I can erase people's memories, like short-term memory, which,
like, the implications of that.
Yeah. It's great, and I'm so happy we know about it now. Like, I wonder if we went back and read, would we get any...
I know.
Anyway.
I need somebody to figure that out for me, because...
I don't want to. So... They have 1 hour until the archives close, and if they are caught inside the archives after closing, they're gonna die. The wards will kill them.
Good. Ideal.
So, Xaden uses his shadows to hide them as they walk through the archives, and, like, Imogen is, like, gonna try and use her signet to help them pass any students if they see them. So Jesnia takes them to a classroom, which has, like, a secret passageway that she opens up. And she's like, I can't go any further. And also the normal archive wards end here. So if you get stuck, stay here. And just stay here throughout the day. And then you can come out, like, once the wards are gone. Right? Like, spend the night in this section.
They would be... People would probably notice if they all aren't
present
in their beds that night. But, you know.
Yeah. So it took them 15 minutes to get to that location.
Which is a dumb time. Like
So now they have 45 minutes to look for the journals that they need. Then we get an excerpt from the Guide to Excelling in the Scribe Quadrant. And it says, the first time you are caught in the archives after closing will be your last, since the magic that preserves the texts isn't compatible with human life. So, like, you will die.
Yeah, which is just interesting.
It's something. Again, I just feel like it's adding this level of danger that, like, do we really need it?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I feel like they should have gone first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
And had as much time as they wanted.
Yeah. But I guess...
Saturday. She said it's not busy on Saturdays.
Yeah. I guess maybe they didn't want to go during the day just in case while it might not be busy, there's probably still more people around.
Yeah, for sure. But it's just like, I can't imagine Violet's father not being able to access the archives at night. For some reason. Like, I just feel like...
No, you're right.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. But, sure.
So they head through the hallways, and there's a couple of guards that Xaden takes out. But the library that they need, like the royal vault.
They need his blood for. Vault. Yeah, that's a good word. Vault.
They don't actually need his blood. He just has to be able to, like, he's the only one that can enter. Like, the wards are keyed to his blood, so only he can walk through the doorway.
Yeah, he doesn't have to, like, cut his hand open like our last book.
So the plan was for Eric to go into this room, and it's just like an open doorway, right? Like, there's no physical door. He was supposed to go in and search for the books by himself. But at the last minute, he grabs Violet and pulls her through the doorway with him. Which was really dangerous because he didn't know how that would react. How, like, the ward would react to that. And, like, she could have died.
Yeah.
So, like, she's really queasy and dizzy, but, like, okay. And Xaden is furious.
Of course.
So they go through all the journals and, like, all the drawers that has all these, like, really rare texts in them. And Violet's like, oh, I want to read that one. Oh, I want to read that one. Oh, like, she wants to be in there so bad.
I'm like, just stay all night.
Yes.
Why not? Like, we just determined that you could stay all night. Why don't you just
stay all night?
Stay all night.
So they go through more and more, like, drawers and shelves and everything, and they can't find what they need, and Violet just starts to panic. And Xaden just sort of, like, talks her down, and they have about 5 minutes left when she realizes that, like, the journals are super old, so they're definitely sensitive to not just, like, air, but also light. So they would want to protect them from the lights in the room. So they find them hiding under a velvet cover. And I'm like, why wouldn't you check under this big old velvet cover in the first place?
Right? I don't get it.
Anyway, there are wards protecting these books as well. So Eric grabs them, but they burn his hands. And now they have 2 minutes to escape. So he grabs her, squeezes back through the doorway, through the wards, and they make a mad dash for it, running as fast as they can back to the entrance to the archives. Violet, at this point, has both journals, and she has them in 2 white archive satchels that just Jesnia lent her just for that special occasion. So the door is, like, closing. Like, I feel like it's like one of those Indiana Jones moments where the door is 100%. Closing.
Yeah.
And Violet thinks, like, they're not gonna make it. And she has a moment where she tells Xaden to, like, go without her. I know. Eye rolls.
Because he's gonna do that.
But he refuses. And he's like, I go where you go. But they do manage to just barely make it. So, no harm, no foul.
Good for them.
Yeah. So, next, we have recovered correspondence from Xaden to Violet. His last chat with his dad was in anger before his dad died because he was mad that his father was sending him away before the Battle of Aritia. And he won't ever forgive himself for that conversation, like for speaking to his dad in anger. But he likes to think that his dad forgives him, which is just sort of like... Yeah. Your dad forgives you. You should forgive yourself.
Yeah. 100%.
So, like, they literally just sprinted through a hallway that normally takes 15 minutes, and they sprinted through in 2. And, like, they're all, like, out of breath and, like, in shock, but at the same time, they have to keep to their plan and, like, act normal and get back to their dorms. So they all separate and go about their way separately to make it less suspicious. And Violet has the journals. So her and Xaden walk outside, and she gives him one of the journals to give it to Brennan. But she glances through it first, and it does have the answers that they need just from a cursory glance. So she's like, you need to take this to Brennan because he can translate it and he knows, like, what to do with it. He wants to stay the night with her, but she said, like, he's better off leaving now so he isn't searched because, like, they'll be expecting him to go in the morning.
Yeah, and they search him every time.
Yeah.
And if they find this, they're fucked.
Yeah, and she wants at least one of the journals to make it out. Mm-hmm. So he says goodbye and that he'll see her in a week. So he flies off, and Nolan, like, approaches her in the courtyard. He was like, "Oh, I thought that was you." And he says, "Jack mentioned seeing you out here. And you're on my mending list, so why don't I get started?" And, like, she's on his mending list from before, like, when she hurt her arm, like, weeks and weeks and weeks ago. Mm-hmm. So, like, he has healed her since, because he healed her after the interrogation.
Yeah.
So, like, this is a poor excuse.
Oh, definitely.
But she's like, "Oh, no, it's all good, Nolan. Like, thanks. But, like, everything's all healed, so it's not necessary.
I trust you."
But, again, it's like, he healed her already.
Yeah.
Also, the fact that she doesn't find it odd that Jack mentioned seeing her in the courtyard. She's literally been out here for 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. So, it's just all around suspicious.
Don't be suspicious.
Yeah. So, Nolan sort of, like, says, like, "You need to watch yourself because Varrish has it out for you." And then he offers her some lemonade. And she mentioned earlier, Xaden asked her if she was okay. She was like, "Yeah, I'm just a little thirsty," because she just had an all-out sprint. Mm-hmm. So she's just thirsty.
Of course.
So she accepts the lemonade and drinks it and thinks it tastes funny. Maybe the kitchen's changed up the recipe.
Of course.
Ugh. And then she just, I guess, feels weird, so she calls for Tairn, but he isn't there. And then she gets dizzy. And then before she blacks out completely, Nolan tells her he hates seeing her hurt, but he can't protect her when she risks the safety of the entire kingdom. And then Varrish comes out and asks what she's gotten herself into. And then she passes out.
Good.
Dun, dun, dun.
Of course.
It's annoying as fuck.
It is. It is. So the next chapter, there's an excerpt from the Unauthorized Dragon Rider Guide. And it says, "The only signet more terrifying than intrinsic," which, like, we saw in Fourth Wing. One guy got an intrinsic one and could hear people's thoughts, and they immediately snapped his neck. And you're like, they're used to seeing people die, but, like, just straight up killing someone like that was a bit of a shock. One of the teachers just did it. But this says, "The only signet more terrifying than that is a truthsayer, and we let them live." So I'm assuming a truthsayer, like it sounds, is somebody that can tell if you're telling the truth or lying. So Violet wakes up in a chair in the brig that we have heard about before, and sounded very creepy. And obviously she can't speak to Tairn because there was something in the lemonade. And we know what it was. But Lieutenant Nora is there, and she's the one that, like, threw all of her shit on the ground the first time her bags were searched, and she's always around. Mm-hmm. And Nolan and Varrish are there. And Varrish says that Malcolm told them that someone broke into the king's chamber. And he wants to know how she stole the book, and who helped, and why. So that makes her realize, like, nobody else has been caught for this. She's the only one. So, like, that is kind of a bit of a relief, I guess. So he asks how she breached the royal wards. And we get here, I guess Varrish kind of says that, like, Nora is a truthsayer. So she knows if Violet is telling the truth. Which kind of makes me want to go back and, like, look at some of the things that happened before. Because remember when her bag was checked and Bodhi was like, "You're, like, we couldn't tell you." Like, did Bodhi know that Nora was a truth-sayer at that point? So he didn't want to tell Violet that her bag would be checked because she might, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it might give it away.
Yeah, so I'm kind of interested in, like, what she has said around Nora and if any of it's been a lie. But I didn't think of it this time through, so I won't think of it next time I read it, probably. But yeah, anyway. So, she just says, so he had asked, like, how she breached the royal wards, and she says it's impossible since she isn't royal. And Nora's like, she's telling the truth. And that's kind of her plan now, and I fucking love it. I love the selective traits.
Yeah, me too.
Like, that's what she's doing, and I'm like, this is brilliant. You're so smart. But obviously Nolan's still there, and he's like, you should just answer. It'll be easier on you. And you're like, fuck off, Nolan. Like, you're a real asshole.
Yeah. So, like, she's literally known Nolan since she was a small child.
Yeah.
And
he has betrayed her.
Yeah.
They ask her if it's, like, the real journal, but she just says, like, she didn't have enough time to verify it, which is also true, which, you know, she's so smart. And then she tells them that, like, she alone put that book in the bag. Like, nobody helped her do that, which is also true. Mm-hmm. So, like, she's like, nobody else helped me. And they're like, this is obviously not everything, but very impressed with her in this part. Like, there are parts of this book that I want to punch her in the face because I'm like, you're being so stupid. But this part, I'm like, oh my god, you're so smart. And then she says that she's done answering questions and that Varrish can put her on trial as per the codex. And instead of doing that, Varrish just backhands her across the face and tells Nora to check the hands of everyone in the quadrant. Because obviously we know, like, Eric, like, touched it and his hands got all...
second-degree burns.
Yeah. And I think... she was like, somebody will help you with that. I can't remember who.
Yeah,
but anyway.
I think it was somebody who, that owed Violet a favor. And she was like, take him to see this person. He owes me a favor. Like, tell them I sent him. He owes me a favor. So he'll mend/heal.
Yeah. Yeah, which is funny because you'd think that she would have been like, Nolan, go to Nolan. And, like, we're so fucking happy that she didn't. But anyway. So Nora goes to do that, and Varrish tells Nolan to leave too, but says he'll be called back because, of course, they're going to torture her. Violet is just like, it's okay. One of the journals is out. Like, Brennan will get it, and he'll be able to... translate it. Sorry, I forgot that word. And they'll be able to put up the wards. And she's kind of at this point, like, giving up on her life. She's like, if I die here, it's fine because they'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. But Varrish just says he's going to start small. And then he dislocates her finger, and then he breaks her finger. And then we assume he's going to just, like, he starts on one finger, goes to the next. Like, we assume he's just doing that to all of the bones.
It's an aperitif.
Yeah. Yes. So we kind of time jump a bit, and I kind of appreciate that, like, we don't get all of the, like, nitty-gritty, like, torture-y stuff.
Yeah.
So she's on the bed, and she's pretending that she's, like, anywhere else. And there's, like, an apparition of Liam that's there, and he's telling her to sleep. And she's like, you're a hallucination, but maybe, like, Malik has sent him as a kindness is kind of what he comes back as. And it's like, it's so sad. And it's one of those things that, like, got the theory that, like, maybe she can talk to the dead or something, because, like, we don't know what her second signet is.
Correct.
Because, like, the two dragons. But
actually, just on that note, I read an interesting theory today about that second signet business. Mm-hmm. The theory I read was that Violet's second signet is a siphon or an amplifier of some sort.
Okay.
And the amplifier, someone said it was because, like, remember back when Rhiannon was taking the dagger from her jacket, when Violet went in and was like, oh my god, I didn't think you could take stuff through walls yet, or something like that.
Yeah.
And she was like, me neither, but I could tell that you were in danger, so I did it. So a lot of people are like, maybe her second signet is an amplifier of sorts. And Rebecca Yarros has already said that her second signet does manifest in this book.
Yeah, she says, like, it comes up and, like, if you knew, you would see the signs. Yeah. Which is another reason why people were like, maybe she can talk to the dead. And I was like, oh, sweet.
But it was also...
But apparently...
Wasn't it also said that she just said she put him in because she missed his character?
Yeah. Rebecca Yarros has already come out and said that, like, that's not actually what it is. Which would have been sad but sweet.
Yeah.
So there are signs in this book. I don't know if I haven't really noticed any that are, like, obvious signs. Like, amplifier, I guess, but I don't know. If you were doing, like, a reader insert story, you wouldn't want it to be an amplifier. You'd want it to be something cooler.
Yeah.
But I guess maybe can she amplify her own powers?
I don't know.
Is that why, like, she was able to strike so many times before the almost burnout and stuff? Lots of repercussions.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So she's talking to a Liam, and her arm is dislocated, and she's in so much pain. And Liam just says to her that he's proud, and she's so strong. And it's just, like, this part is heartbreaking. I'm like, in Fourth Wing, you made us cry because Liam died, and now you're making us cry again because he's, like, back as a sweet ghost. It's just mean.
Yeah.
So she hears Nora comes back and Varrish, and Nora says, like, bring in her squad and torture them to get answers from her. But Varrish is like, no, she didn't break during assessment, so I don't think, like, torturing her squad is going to affect her. And I'm like, you're a fucking idiot.
Yep.
But he also says...
But this is what I don't understand, because we're about to get what his signet is, and... Yeah, you're right. He's a dumbass.
Yeah, it's stupid. But he's like, oh, that won't work. But then he does have another reason. He says, like, they can't kill all of her squad, and he doesn't think that Imogen would agree to wipe their memories because she has a relic. So
yeah,
he doesn't think that she would actually go along with it. And obviously, if, like, he gets the truth out of Violet and her squad is there, then her squad will figure out that Venom are real, which he assumes they don't know yet.
Mm-hmm. I guess.
Like, I guess. And also, Nora didn't find anyone with hand injuries, so somebody in the healing quadrant likes Violet and was nice. Also, Emeterio, De Vera, the two professors, and her squad are already asking about her. So she knows that it's at least Monday. So, like, they're at least back to school. And she's missing from classes for her professors to be worried about her. So she knows she's been here for 2 days. Which means that it'll be 5 days until Xaden is going to know that something's wrong when she doesn't show up at Samara. And Liam just says to her that he's definitely already on the way. And she's like, no, there's no way.
It's like, girl, come on.
He's in love with you. Varrish comes back in and just says, like, he doesn't care about all the other stuff. He just wants to know why she's looking into the wards. So he doesn't care who helped her or how she did it. He just wants to know why. And he offers her information. And he asks, like, where she went to be healed after Resin, because they're like, we know that you were attacked by Venom, and we know you were healed, but we don't know who healed you. And I actually kind of thought that, like, the information would have, like, intrigued her a bit more than it does.
Yeah, like, she is not tempted by anything that he says. And maybe it's because, like, she has been dealing with him for so long and he's been a dick.
True, yeah.
So, like, she's not tempted by anything he says because he hasn't been a cool dude.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But
yeah. It's just interesting because, like, that's her big thing is, like, she wants to know things. So you're like, I wouldn't be super surprised if she was like, I don't know, if she wanted to know. But she's not falling for it. But yeah, now he tells her what his signet is. And it's seeing people's weaknesses. And he says at first he couldn't see past her shield. But now that she doesn't, like, now that she's taken that elixir thing, she doesn't have her signet magic. She can't shield, and she can't access Tarn. He can see that her weakness is the people she loves.
And yet, we can't torture her squad.
She won't break. But then he says, her squad.
Yeah.
Her sister, her dragons, and Lieutenant Ryerson.
Not her mother.
Like, so many. I know. This comes up again this week, too.
But, like, also, is Brennan not in that list either? Like, would he be able to see Brennan if... You know what I mean? Like, would he be able to see Brennan and therefore be like, why would your dead brother be a weakness?
Yeah, I wonder if he does see Brennan and he's just like, oh, he's dead. He doesn't count anymore. Like, I wonder if he's just like, he doesn't think it through.
Or, like, does he only get, like, hints of, like, you know what I mean? I just wonder how specific it is. And we'll never know, but, like...
No. And it could just be, like, the people she loves.
Yeah.
And, like, maybe it doesn't actually show who they are.
Yeah.
He's just observant.
Yes.
Yes. Interesting. But he literally says so many choices, but he literally just told Nora that he can't bring them down. We're like, cool. And then he says that he knows that she thinks that Xaden is going to save her, and that's actually what he's counting on. This whole thing is just a trap for Xaden. And he also says that he's seen Xaden's weakness, so he knows how to crack him. And she'll have to stay and watch it. And I'm like...
It's her.
What's Xaden's weakness? He doesn't tell us.
It has to be her. If it's not her, I'm going to throw the book across the floor. Like, it has to be her.
I know, but I feel like he saw Xaden's weakness at a different point in time. Like, I feel like... I can't remember how he says it, but he's like... oh, Xaden's really good with his shields, but there was one time he didn't have them up. And I was like, was this before he even met Violet that he saw what his weakness was? So I kind of wonder, because I think she is right now, but I kind of wonder if he had a different weakness before or something. Anyway, we don't get any more information on it, so, you know. And then Violet just asks him if Solus likes hiding, because Tarn is definitely hunting her right now.
Yeah.
So Tarn is hunting his dragon. And Violet says that she may die here, but she promises that Varrish will die. And he calls for Nolan then to, like, heal her so he can start fresh. And she just thinks, like, she knows that Xaden won't risk the revolution by coming to get her.
Even though he's already said he would.
He doesn't care if every fucking person dies. Like, you're not listening to his words. And she just hopes that he'll survive her death and, like, the dragons will survive her death and all that. And she asks Liam to stay with her, and he says that he will, which is just, like, the sweetest.
It's very cute.
So she's beaten and mended over days, and days pass, and she eats, and they force the, like, elixir on her so that she can't contact her dragon. At one point, Nora suggests getting Jack Barlow in here to, like, beat the shit out of her, but Varrish says that he's too unpredictable, and I'm like, Varrish calling someone unpredictable is, like...
something.
This you really have to be unpredictable if he's going to call you it. And then Dane shows up. And she can hear them talking first. She can hear Dane and Varrish talking before, like, Dane actually sees her. But Varrish says that Dane needs to help Navarre, and he needs his help. And a rider stole intelligence and is likely working on a second rebellion, so Dane needs to extract the truth. So he gives him, like, this big pep talk, and he's like, it might be surprising, but... like, we need you to do this. And anyway, he walks in and sees her. And Violet's just like, help me, please?
Yeah.
Which, you know, is fair. And Dane is just like, so you've been torturing her for 5 days? And Varrish says that she stole Lyra's journal. And Lyra's one of the original 6. First 6, whatever. And that... Violet is actively trying to take the wards down. So that is his assumption, which I think is stupid.
See, that's not how I interpreted it, as that's the story he's crafting for Dane.
Yeah, but I don't understand how they don't know where they are. If they know that they're working on ward things, like, obviously they should know where they are. There's only so many places where there are ward things available. Maybe it's because he doesn't tell people what he actually thinks. Maybe he does know. Maybe he's realized it all and he's just crafting. Because yes, he is telling a lot of truths and lies and spinning stuff to Dane right now to get him manipulated.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's saying she's trying to take the wards down, and she says to Dane that he knows her and that she would never hurt civilians, but he says he doesn't know her anymore.
What an ass.
And then Varrish shows Dane, like, her alloy dagger and says that she's stealing them from the wards. And then some, like, random person is yelling out that General Sorengale is ordering all leadership to come, and there's been an incident at the borders. And I was like, is somebody just making this up? Like, what the fuck is going on? But Varrish also says that Ryerson apparently deserted days ago, so that is likely him that is causing the incidents at the borders. And then Varrish tells Dane to look for, like, to go into her head and focus on wards. And Liam is still there, and he says that Dane can search her memories, but he'll have to go through what she's thinking first. So Dane goes over, and she can feel him, like, as soon as he's in her head, which is interesting, because I'm like, you just didn't feel this before, the times that he's stealing her memories.
That's true.
But now you can.
That's true.
But she can. So she drags him into the memory of the wyverns and the venom and of Liam dying. And then she, like, after showing him all of that, she then shows him the torture that she's been enduring for the past 5 days. Because she's like, he's going to have to deal with all of this pain and shit before he'll see anything he wants. So he ends up letting go because obviously it's awful. And he just says that she's been smuggling weapons. And Violet's like, that's what you got out of all of that. You're a piece of shit.
I love it.
And yeah. And she apologizes to Liam, but he says that he's sorry that she was dragged into this. And, like, I just love Liam.
No, we all love Liam. Such a precious baby.
He is. And she just feels super defeated then. And then Dane brings, like, a dagger to her throat. And, like, you could kind of tell that he wasn't actually going to do anything. You could tell that he was just saying this to Varrish. I don't know. Or at least I was like, no, he's going to turn and do exactly what he does. But he says, and this, I guess, was one of the moments I thought this, because he says none of this would have happened if she trusted him. And I feel like he meant that sincerely in, like, if she had trusted him and told him about the venom and about the wyvern, he would have been on her side. But she just assumed that he knew.
Yeah, but I don't know, man. Like, it's the same thing with her friends. Like, she couldn't tell any of them. And Dane has literally been a dick. Like, even 100%. Before he betrayed her, he didn't trust her. Like, back in Fourth Wing, the whole reason she chose Xaden over Dane, not that it was a competition, but, like, Xaden was always confident in her abilities. He always believed she could do it. And Dane was like, oh, you're weak, you're fragile, you can't do it. Like, that is who he is, right? Like,
yeah.
So, like, I don't think he earned her trust. Like, no. Even before the betrayal. Yeah. So, I think this is just him being a dick.
Yeah. I think he thinks he means it, though.
I guess.
So then she thinks, like, she should have she thinks she should have told Xaden every day that she loved him, because she thinks she's literally being murdered right now, which is the saddest. Mm-hmm. But then, of course, Dane stabs Varrish, and then he cuts, like, the bonds on her hands, and he pulls her up, and he puts his sword to Nora's throat and says if she lets them go, she can live. But then a voice says he didn't make that promise, and just kills Nora.
Yay!
We're like, a voice.
Yay!
Of course, it's Xaden.
Yay!
I love it. And then we get another excerpt, and it's from the Unauthorized Rider's Guide, and it's like, killing a cadet is bad, but attacking leadership is much worse. And you're like...
Well, they're fucking encouraged to, like, kill cadets.
Yeah, so... You know. So Xaden then immediately goes to, like, attack Zane, but Violet is like, nope, stop, he just helped me, please don't kill him. Which would have been, like, the funniest thing ever if he just killed him.
So you, by the way, you just called him Zane.
Zane. Whoops. Xaden?
No, you called Dane Zane.
Oh, Zane? Oh, Dane. Yes.
It's like a combination of both their names.
It is a combination.
I love it.
I don't think I'd want them to get together.
No, I definitely would not want them together, but it's fine.
No. Yeah. I'm just thinking of their ship name. Anyway. So Violet stumbles over to Xaden then, and she's just like, you came. I'm like, of course he fucking did. But he says, there's nowhere in existence you could go that I wouldn't find you. And I'm like, oh.
I love it so much.
I love it. Garrick shows up then, and it's kind of cute. Like, I just love Garrick. He's like, oh, Violet, you've looked better. She's like, yeah, she's been tortured for 5 days. I'd say she did. But he's like, it's chaos up there. And then Varrish has been stabbed but isn't dead yet. But he asks if Dane is a traitor. And Varrish says, like, Dane's father would be disappointed. And Dane says he's actually disappointed in his father if he knows all of this and, like, didn't do anything about it. And Dane goes to finish Varrish off, but Xaden says it's her honor if she wants it. And he has to, like, help Violet over, but she's the one that actually, like, stabs him to death with Xaden's help to actually push the blade in. Yeah. Because, you know, she's in a lot of pain.
And I love that she actually did it.
Yeah.
Like, I love that, like, she didn't take the high road and be like, no, let him live. I'm not as bad as him. No, I'm glad she killed the fucking guy.
Yeah. And she literally was like, you're gonna die in here. Remember I told you that a few days ago. You're dead now. And I fucking love it.
And I hope Taryn actually did go find solace and, like,
I love you so much. And I love how much you don't remember of this book.
Oh, does that come up?
No, okay. Not at all.
All right.
Oh, so good.
Okay. Wonderful.
So yeah. Violet tells Xaden then that she didn't break. And I kind of don't love his answer. Because he's like, it wouldn't matter if you did. Which, like, is comforting. But also, she was super badass.
Yes!
And she didn't fucking break. Like,
I know. But, like, I get, like, you wouldn't want him to be like, woohoo, you go, girl.
Yeah.
But
I don't really know what he could have said, but I wanted more.
I also didn't appreciate that, like, he initially went with, like, it doesn't matter what you said, like, you know, blow it. And she was like, I didn't say anything. And he's like,
yeah.
Oh, okay, well, it doesn't matter. Like, I hate that he went initially to, oh, you obviously talked. Mm-hmm. It's like, you really think she'd be in that rough shape if she had actually talked?
Yes. Yeah.
Like, come on.
Yeah, it is a bit like, you should know better. Yeah. And it's this whole thing about, like, she's in pain all the time. Like, physical pain is not how you're going to get to her. They should have taken her squad. She would have told them everything.
Yep. If they were like, here, you have some filet mignon, some ice cream. Meanwhile, we're gonna make you watch your friends get tortured. Like, I think that would have been the way.
They could have killed one of them and been like, oh, next time, tomorrow if you don't talk, we're gonna kill the next one. Like, she would have 100% talked. Mm-hmm. I obviously don't want any of her squad to die, but I think it would have worked.
Yeah, 100%.
So yeah, I didn't love that that's what he jumped to, but, you know, I get what he's saying, but I wanted him to be like, oh my god, you're amazing.
Yeah. Like, way to go, girl.
Yeah. So yeah. And then he says that they're leaving. Even if he loses everything he worked for, all he needs is her. Aww. And yeah, and he's like, oh, this is the moment. This is the moment. And he kind of tells her, like, he is who he is. Like, he's, you know, a rebel, and he's got the relic and the leader, whatever. But he says that he loves her. And he has loved her since the night that the snow fell and they kissed for the first time. And he's grateful that her life is tied to his, so he won't have to face a day without her. And she says that she loves him. And it's a sweet moment.
And you would think that, like, this is sort of their moment now. Like, they're together.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You would think. So he wraps her fractured arm and her broken ribs, and her hip is out of place, and, like, she is not feeling great. And Dane just, like, offers to carry her, and Xaden's like, fuck right off.
Yeah. Read the room, Dane.
Yeah. Xaden's like, I don't know if I'm gonna let you live, so no, I'm not gonna let you carry her. Don't be a dumbass. And Violet actually thinks, like, for the first time in her life, she feels weak. Like, the amount of times that people have said that she's weak and, like, all of that shit, she didn't really feel it. But right now, when she's trying to walk and she's struggling because she's been beaten for 5 days straight, she actually does feel weak. And that obviously sucks. Liam is the man that we need in this moment, and is like, you didn't break. Like, you're amazing.
Way to go, girl.
And yeah, and I love it. And then Xaden picks her up, and he says that he promises the next time that he's tortured for 5 days that she can carry him, which I kind of love. So she says thank you to both of them, and Xaden tells Dane to follow him or die. And then Garrick is just, like, a little ways ahead of them, and he's like, we have a bit of a problem. And then he's like, it's a general-sized problem. And they turn the corner, and her mother has a blade at his neck, and they're just like, oh. But she asks Xaden who he killed, and he just says, everyone. And I love it. I'm like, yeah, as he should. But she hands Violet the antidote for the, like, elixir thing.
Yeah, that cut her off from Taryn.
Yeah. And Violet's kind of like, I don't know if I should drink this for a little while. And she's like, I'll think about it first. But her mother then tells her that, like, she was away or she would have come. And we kind of got, like, I think when she first woke up, they were talking about her, they say, like, she's away, blah, blah, blah. And they were talking about her mother.
Very convenient.
Yes. But then her mother asks to talk to her alone, and Xaden is like, no fucking way. But she says to Xaden, like, he knows how much she'd do to protect her daughter, and leadership is gone right now because he has been dropping wyverns at outposts. So she should get to say goodbye to Violet. Violet is like, yeah, I'll talk to my mom. And Xaden's like, fine. But he's like, your mother is a monster. Like, okay.
It's like,
right in front of her
face.
Thank
you for that.
And Violet, so Xaden and I guess Garrick and Dane all walk away. And Violet asks her mother if she knows what's out there.
Obviously.
And, right, like,
Come
we knew this
on.
forever. But she says
general
when
of
Violet,
the school.
Yeah. She says when Violet has children of her own, they can discuss it. And she says, and this is kind of funny, but she says, like, she didn't want Violet to be in the the scribe quadrant because she would have found out. Because she was, like, basically being groomed to be Markham's heir of the scribe quadrant. Yeah. So her mother knew that, like, eventually Markham would have told her everything, and it would have been her job to keep the secret. So she decided that it would be better for Violet to go into the Riders Quadrant because she was afraid that if Markham eventually told her, she would push back on it and she would be killed. And then she also called in a favor in the Riders Quadrant. So she tells her that she allowed all of the relic kids in the Rider Quadrant, and Ryerson was to watch over them in exchange for a favor to her. And the favor was that he keep Violet alive when she's in the Riders Quadrant. And her mother didn't anticipate the mated dragons or the emotional entanglement, which she says is disappointing. But this means, and this is the point of the book that I was like, I hate this book, I'm throwing it away. Because this means, and Violet thinks to herself that, like, this is why he didn't kill her after he found her in the tree. Mm-hmm. And this is why he almost stepped in during threshing. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Because in Fourth Wing, those were the two best fucking moments in the book. Because we were like...
it was like he cares.
The feeling
he cares
and the
about her.
And
yeah.
Like, yeah. And now you're ripping it away from me? I'm so pissed.
Yeah. Yeah, it's... And, like, also, it's not necessary. Like,
not necessary at all.
We had that level of connection with Xaden, and it was like, oh my god, he loves her. Like, and he said he loved her, but that was, like, after threshing. Like, he fell in love with her after that. But, like, for us, it was like, oh my god, he secretly can't stay away from her. Mm-hmm. And, yeah, you're right. Like, I don't like that this development has happened. And, like...
that they just took that all away from us.
And, like... I don't feel that her mom deserved a favor for letting children live.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, You know what? You gave him a 107 scars on his back. He doesn't owe you shit.
Exactly.
But, yeah, I don't know if I could read Fourth Wing the same. Knowing that. And that I hate that.
I know, and I kind of forgot that this happened, and when it happened, I was like, oh, I didn't forget, I just, like, pushed it out of my memory because I hate it so much.
Yeah.
It really does, it ruins parts of the first book that I loved. Makes me sad. And, obviously, like, it doesn't come back up this week, which it should have. Like, she should ask him about it, but it doesn't come up yet. So, obviously, this is going to be another rift between them because she's going to be like, hey, what the fuck?
Yes.
It's just, I hate it.
All it's doing is, like, her and Xaden had this nice moment of, I love you, like, you're my person. And now it's, like, it's just a reason to put that into chaos. You know what I mean? Like, we need the high stakes of will they, won't they?
Yeah. And I'm like, we don't need this much in one book. This is the second book of 5. And you're going to be stringing us along on, like, bullshit lies and miscommunication for, like, what? 3.5 more books? 2.5 more books?
Yeah.
Plus the end of this one, I guess. So, yeah, 3.5 more books. 3 books. Anyway, whatever. Whatever it is, I hate it. Yeah. So... then she asks her mother about the marks on his back because Dane told her while they were fighting that her mother put them there. And her mom says, like, it's a Terrish custom. And she's just like, no, I don't want to hear any more of this. Like, obviously, her mother did it. And then her mother says that by putting her in the Riders Quadrant, she actually hastened their own end. Because her whole plan was that if she was in the Riders Quadrant, she wouldn't find out about the Wyvern, like her sister, I guess, and everything would have been fine. Because in the Scribe Quadrant, she eventually would have found out, but, like, she found out even sooner by being in the Riders Quadrant.
I do love that her mom, like, knows her so much that she knew that, like, as soon as she found out, she would want to help. And she wouldn't stand for it, which is why she was like, well, I don't want her to find out. Because I don't want her to fight against it.
And I love how tremendously it backfired in her face.
I hope that her mom redeems herself. Like, I hope that we get a redemption.
Oh, you haven't finished the book. Anyway, and then her mother says that Sorrengails walk or fly off the battlefield. They're never carried. And you're like, bitch, she was tortured for 5 days. Just fuck off.
Leave her alone.
Yeah, ugh. So she goes to meet up with Dane and Xaden and Garrick, and they're like, okay, we're gonna go get all the marked people and leave, because, like, obviously they're all fucked now. But Violet's like, no, we need to offer everyone the choice. And, like, this all takes a while, but essentially Dane just calls a formation, and they tell all the cadets the truth. And Taryn tells her, like, it's up to each individual dragon if they want to, like, confirm the truth with their rider. So, like, if they don't, then it is what it is. She asks about Andarna then, but she's still sleeping. And Taryn says, like, she's sleeping longer than any of the babies, for lack of a better word, normally sleep. But they're getting her harness ready, so they're going to take her, like, they're obviously leaving, but they're going to take her while she's asleep. Everyone's basically arguing, and Violet then asks Taryn to share the memory of Resin, and, like, they're always like, oh, this is such a no-no, we don't share memories, but this is, like, the second time in 2 books that she's been like, Taryn, share this memory, and he's just like, nah, fine. So he shares the memory with any of the dragons that agree to tell their riders the truth, and they show the riders, so the riders realize what the truth is, I guess. And then everyone's still arguing and shit, and then Xaden just gets up and is like,
quit it.
Takes command.
Yeah.
And basically, and everyone's just like, God damn, he's so good at that. We're like, yeah, he is. And he's just like, it's the truth. If your dragons didn't show you, then they made the decision for you.
You're sticking around. Congratulations.
Yeah, that's fine. And then Jacinia and 2 other scribes come out, and Taryn says that he has dragons that will carry them, and it's only a one-time deal because dragons don't carry anyone that aren't riders. But he's like, I have secured dragons that'll take them. Xaden then, like, I guess this is his, like, rally.
Yeah.
His speech. But he's like,
it's not a great one, outmatched. To be fair.
No, and it's funny because, like, Violet tells him exactly that. She's like, that speech sucks. And he's like, well, if we need to convince people to come, then we don't want them to be fighting for us anyway. And, like, I kind of understand what he's saying, but I'm also like, nah, you need people.
Yeah.
But he basically just says, like, they're outmatched, but they need to decide if they will go and fight because the Venin are going to come either way. And, like, there's a hatching ground here, so eventually the Venin are going to try to come here and, like, take all of the energy and power from this place. And I'm like, most of these people probably haven't even heard of Venin before. Like, even the fairy tale Venin. Like,
yeah.
You're starting from zero. Like, they don't know what the fuck you're talking about. So then all the professors that were chatting show up, and Carr is, like, pissed, and he's like, I won't allow it. And Xaden yells to Bodhi, and Carr is, like, getting his fire magic ready to, like, I don't know, attack somebody.
Which prof is Carr again?
He's the one that not forced her, but he's the one that helps her with her magic.
Okay.
Her signet. Like, he's the one that was on the mountaintop with, what's his face, Varrish, when she was being punished. Right. So he helps people with their signets. But So Kara's getting his fire ready, because that's his signet, and Bodhi just, like, moves his hands in a certain way, and his signet just counteracts other people's signets.
A lot of them have really cool signets that we haven't heard of before.
I know. I'm like, how are you keeping all of these a secret? And I just have not noticed them, because shit, these are cool. Yeah, and I fucking love it. But Deborah's there too, and she says that they're not going to stop them, and some of the profs actually want to go with them. And she also says that she's the one who leaked the news in Battle Brief about that.
I love it.
Like the propaganda one. We love her.
We do love her.
So then we 200 dragons and 101 riders.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So, yeah. The 200 dragons and 101 riders leave, and more are coming behind them, but are taking a safer route with the babies to get to... Starts with an A. I forget the name, but her brother's there. Whatever it's called. You'd think I'd know the names better, but I do not.
Aritia?
Aritia, yes. So, Taryn and Sigale land by Ryerson House, and Violet is still pretty fucked up from obviously being tortured. Yeah. So Brennan is like, Xaden, what have you gotten her into? You keep bringing her here super injured. And Violet is just like, no, he got me out of it this time. Like, he saved me. And then he sees other dragons coming in the distance, I guess the other 198 of them. And he's like, what the fuck? And she's like, you said you needed more riders.
Here are some more.
Basically. Then we get an excerpt from a Tarish history book that says that Ryerson House has never been breached by army, and it has survived countless sieges before it fell to Dragonfire. Well, like, it didn't really fall to Dragonfire because it's still here.
But also, does this mean that it's gonna fall and be breached?
Oh, because there's this future. Interesting.
Just saying.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, we start this chapter with a dream, and it's the same kind of dream as before. The Venom Sage is telling Violet that she, like, moved away from the wards, and that was a bold move, and he says he'll hunt her to the ends of the continent and beyond. And, like, it's just a nightmare, but we're also like, it's definitely real. Like, you should probably talk to them.
Yes! She doesn't tell a soul! What a dummy.
I know, I hate it. So she wakes up in Xaden's room, and she's not feeling any pain, which is obviously new, because, you know, her brother mended her, which is great. And Xaden is asleep next to her, and she just, like, looks at him, and she, like, sits up on her knees and starts, like, tracing his 107 scars on his back. And, like, how fucking long did that take her mother to do? That is fucked. Ugh. And she thinks, like, he risked his life for them, and he risked his life for her, and she's ready to live now. So she kisses up his back, and he flips her so that, like, he's on his back and she's on top of him, and he's immediately hard.
Mm-hmm. Of course he is.
Yeah. And she's just like, oh, this is the last time I'll be able to stay in your room, because I don't know. I'm like, that's stupid. What? Like, this is his house.
It is stupid. Why can't she stay with him?
But I think I can't remember if she does or not, but I assume, like, it's silly. But she's just like, after today, I won't be allowed to stay here. And I'm like, why? But anyway. And he's just like, it's my house. We can do what we want. And I'm like, yeah.
Oh my god.
So she slides down his body, but he says that she should be sleeping because she needs to recover. But she's just like, I'm all good. I'm all fixed. And she, like, pulls down his pants, and she gives him a blowjob. And he says that she needs to stop because he's going to lose it. And she says that she doesn't want him to be gentle. And she says she wants him feral.
Yikes.
So he flips her over onto her stomach, and
sex ensues.
Yeah. They kiss, they pull off all their clothes, and he's hesitant, of course. But they, like, he gets over it very quickly. He's, like, hesitant until she's like, I said feral, and he's like, oh, okay. she's, yeah, you're probably right the first time. She is still kind of healing. And then he's like, she puts her face in the pillow so that people won't hear her because, like, everybody from their fucking school is in this building. And he's like, no, I want them all to hear you.
How is it any different than like, when they had sex in the dorm before?
He had it warded so no one could hear. Which is stupid because obviously he's done the same thing here. And he only tells her after. Like, we do get that it's actually warded. Nobody hears them. But she thinks that they do. And, like, she kind of gets off on it. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And of course, like, he's fucking her hard, and she's like, I'm alive, and I'm yours, and, like, they're loving it. Of course she comes, and there's lightning, and then his shadows immediately cover it, and he tells her then, that there is actually a sound shield on his room. And you're like, So they leave the room, and there are cadets everywhere, and they actually find most of her squad, and they ask what's going on, and we're like, I don't know, like, you can't expect them to have a plan. You guys decided to come. You can't expect them to immediately have a plan ready.
Yeah,
but
I guess at the same time, like, if someone, like, gives you this rousing speech, I guess you sort of want, like, you want those answers.
Yeah, that's true. But we get that, like, last night they took a roll call, and then they gave everybody rooms, and they've all had breakfast today, so, like, it's not been awful. There's something happening. So they pass by Eric then, and he asks, what now? Because he came, even though he's the prince. And Violet is like, it's your choice if you want to tell anyone. And Xaden agrees with her, so, like, Xaden's not going to tell everybody his secret, which I guess is good. And then Xaden takes her to talk to the assembly, because they're, of course, already meeting. And Violet is kind of worried that she fucked up, because, you know, it was her decision to take everybody.
I guess, yeah.
And Xaden is just like, yeah, we might have. But we did what we did, you know? So they walk in, and the assembly are super pissed. I kind of hate the assembly, and I know you're supposed to hate them, but, like, they're just such dicks. Yeah. But they're, like, they're there, and they're already yelling at Imogen and Bodhi and Garrick, and Xaden's just like, hey, I made this call, so you can't be mad at those guys. Like, stop yelling at them. This was my call to make. And one of the bitchy ones says, like, they're not sure why the general's daughter is here. And I'm like, of course they fucking say that. Like, leave it alone. I get that you hate the general, but, like, the general's son is also there. The general's daughter's boyfriend is there. Like, this double,
like, the double sort of standard, between, like, Brennan and Violet, like, no, she hasn't been fighting as long, but as soon as she found out, she's been fighting for them. Yeah. And, like, I just feel like they're saying, oh, Brennan deserved it because he's been fighting for them for 6 years. And, like, Violet has been doing her part ever since she found out. The same as Brennan. Yeah. So, like, this whole, like, we don't like you, meh. Again, I just feel like it's an unnecessary plot device to add conflict.
Yeah, to the point that, like, they're like, oh, she brought all these people here on purpose to, like, fuck us over. It's, like, a point that they get to in a bit. And I'm like, fuck off. But she also, like, Violet sees an empty chair that Xaden was sitting in last time. And she's like, oh, they're clearly waiting on somebody. And the chair is, like, half burnt. And it's like a throne. And she's like, huh, whose could that be? And you're like, girl.
Isn't it Xaden's?
It is, but she doesn't know yet.
That it's Xaden's?
She doesn't know that he's, like, the tippy top of this.
How does she not know they're
revolution.
staying at Ryerson House? His last name
Fuck
is Ryerson.
me.
I don't get it.
Listen, I know. So, anyway, they all argue for a bit, and then Xaden's like, because they're like, what the fuck are we supposed to do with all of these cadets? They're children.
Yeah.
And, like, they're not really children. Most of them are, like, a year out from graduating.
But to be fair, they're not wrong. Like, they need soldiers, and, like, they need riders, and, like, they have here these, like, half-formed young people that have not gone through all their schooling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I am also just, like, Xaden even says it. He's like, listen, this is my house. Count them as my guests. Like, I don't care. Which I kind of find fun. So yeah, they're kind of arguing about that. And Xaden's just like, we'll divide them into wings. And he says, Atos and the scribes... No, he doesn't say it, but everyone else says, like, Atos and the scribes are being held until they can decide their loyalties. And Violet kind of jumps in here, which, like, whenever she talks during the assemblies, I'm like, this is not your place. Mm-hmm. Like, you can observe, but this isn't really, like, you don't have a seat here. And it's not in a, like, you're too young, you're a woman kind of way. It's in a, like, you just actually don't have a seat here. Like, there are women on this council, there are young people on this council. Nothing to do with you. You just don't, you're
not from here. You're not part of this decision-making process.
Yeah. But anyway, every time she speaks up, I'm like, please stop. I'm like, I wouldn't be doing this. But anyway, she says that Kath can vouch for Dane, so, like, his dragon can vouch for him. And she says, Jacinia is the only reason they have a journal from Warwick. And they're like, what do you mean a journal from Warwick? And Xaden's like, oh yeah, I got this journal. I just didn't have a chance to bring it to Brennan because of all the shit that went on. I had to go save Violet. But he says it's in Lutherian, and he was bringing it back to Brennan when he got sidetracked. And they should be able to use it to figure the wards out. And one of the guys on the assembly is like, so by stealing that, you basically, like, showed them where we were going to be because they know where the other, I guess, ward stones are. Which is kind of what we were saying earlier. And then he's like, so that was her plan all along. She's actually sabotaging us by doing this.
Yeah.
And they say that, like, she should be contained and questioned. And Brendan says he will cut out this guy's other eye if he goes for his sister. Which is kind of funny because I clearly wrote this. These are my notes. But I don't really remember this guy only having one eye. And it reminds me of Taryn saying it to the dragon, too. This is the same threat. But he says, like, Violet's been questioned enough. And we're like, yeah, she was fucking tortured for days. Let's not torture her again. Xaden then says, like, Melgren won't be coming for them because he's too busy, and half of the riders he planned to have in 3 years are actually here now. So he's not going to attack them when, like, he could potentially get most of those riders back on his side if, I don't know, he did something. He's not going to kill all of them.
We hope.
Yeah. And then he pulls his shirt down and shows a thin scar that's on his chest and says that he bears the responsibility for Violet and all of her decisions. And this is the thing that he talked about last week, 2 weeks ago, that he went through the painful process to, like, take responsibility for Violet. Remember?
Yeah, but they never specified what it was.
No, we don't actually know what it is. We just know that he's got a scar. Like, the 107 scars on his back, he's got one on his chest for Violet.
For fuck's sakes. Xaden needs to stop, like, scarring himself for people.
He needs to... He's worth more than anybody thinks he is. And so Violet's like, what the fuck? And he's like, I did it immediately after resin. And he tells everyone, at this point, I kind of said this already, but he tells everyone to consider the cadets as his guests, and he doesn't need to ask to bring people into his own home. And he says that his life is tethered to Violet, so if they want him in that fucking chair, then they'll accept her. And Violet's like, oh shit, he's the leader. For fuck's sake.
How did she not? And, like, did she not see him sitting in that chair earlier?
She did. Like, last time he was here, she saw him sprawled in the chair, but she's just like, no, somebody else's. I'm like, okay. So then one of the women on the assembly says fine, but that doesn't help them arm the drifts, and by taking half the riders, they may have lost them the war. And Xaden tells them they'll put the cadets in school. And then Andarna wakes up. And Violet, like, speaks to Violet mind to mind. We're like, yay, she's okay. So then we get an excerpt from Warwick's journal, translated by Violet. And it says, with all we sacrificed for this kingdom, we better be able to defend it. Like, okay. There's going to be more about that, I guess. So they go see Andarna, and she's currently napping between Taryn and Scale, and she has a scorpion tail, which is interesting, because at one of the points in this book, they said that dragons develop a tail based on what
need or something.
What they need, yeah. I'm like, why does she have a scorpion tail? I don't understand anything.
I'm assuming that's a normal shape for a tail, though.
Oh, yeah. I don't know the differences between the tails.
I wonder if she has venom in it.
Ooh, that'd be fun. So, yeah. And Violet's, like, looking at her black scales, and she's like, they reflect color weirdly. Like, they look like there's a bit of, like, green and whatever in them. She's like, that's definitely a normal thing. We're like, okay, sure. Like, clearly it's not, but...
She's very unique.
Yes. So Andarna wakes up again, and she's about 2/3 the size of Sigale, and she opens her wings, but she falls forward. And it's kind of the same thing that happened last time she was here after Resin. And Taryn tells her to be patient, but Violet is looking at her, and, like, her left wing doesn't fully extend. And Violet starts panicking, and she's not really sure what to say to her. Because, like, there's clearly something wrong. And Andarna kind of just snaps at her and says, like, she's not broken any more than Violet is broken. Because, like, obviously this is Violet's whole thing. Like, her joints subjugate easily. And Taryn is like, why don't you go eat some sheep? And Sigale, like, takes her to go eat sheep. And Violet is like, what the fuck? And Taryn is like, put your shields up so that she can't hear us. But then he says that the elders think that, like, her wings will work and she'll be able to fly. But that because of the battle in Resin, she grew up too fast, and she didn't get to sleep immediately when she should have, which we kind of, like, alluded to a bit. And she was woken up a few times, so her growth has been, like, unpredictable. And normally dragons have a second set of muscles on their wings, but hers just didn't grow. So she asks if Brennan could mend her, but Taryn says you can't mend what doesn't exist.
So it's sad.
So he tells her, it is sad, and this is the part that, like, I guess they're keeping from Andarna, which I'm like, you probably shouldn't, because she's going to be pissed when she finds out. But the, like, big reveal is that she might be able to fly one day, but she's never going to be able to bear a rider. Which is sad. So all the cadets start doing lessons, and they start learning about Terrash history, and they run, like, the hills every day instead of, like, fighting each other. And Violet is translating the journal, and she keeps getting, like, she is at this part about the wards, and she keeps translating certain words into Iron Rain. And we're like, the book is Iron Flame. We all know it's not going to be Iron Rain. We all know it's Iron Flame. But okay.
It's funny that you're saying that. I totally did not make that connection.
Oh, really? I was like, it even rhymes.
Like Iron Rain. I wonder what Iron Rain is. So.
That's funny. No, I immediately was like, obviously, it's gonna be Iron Flame. It's funny what you pick up, because you pick up so many things that I don't get. And then,
you pick up things
every now and then I'll pick up
you
something.
pick up things that completely are lost me, but you also remember things better. Because I'm just like, what?
Apparently. What happens with this person? What happens with this dragon?
Oh, God.
I think it'll be next week.
Oh.
Yeah. So Xaden is currently away on a mission, and their class is in like battle brief for all intents and purposes. And Devera is there because she came with them, and Brennan is the new Markham.
You know what? This is what I don't like. I don't like that they're just recreating the same thing in a different, like, it's the same thing, but a different kingdom. So, like, what makes them better?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They're like, we like to share all of the news. It's like the first thing Brennan says. We get even more into it in a second, but first, Devera's like, so you're all traitors. She's like, you better get used to that word, because everyone's going to call you it. But she says that she's proud of them. And then Brennan says that Fourth Wing has the Iron Squad, and actually the whole section came, so they are now an Iron section, and he assumes they're going to want a patch. And I'm like, we're worried about fucking patches right now? Like, this part I was like, this is completely unnecessary.
But again, it's like they're literally just recreating the same thing.
Yeah. I didn't like that part. So they give an update from Nevere now, and they say that the public doesn't know anything, and the only ones that know anything are the ones that were working and actually saw the wyverns be dropped at the outposts. And the outposts are still turning away Paromish citizens, and it doesn't seem like anybody in Navarre knows where all of these traitors are. Which is like, how?
Yeah, it's very obvious.
Yeah. One guy in the class is like, when are we going to get to start fighting the Dark Wielders? And Brennan's like, not until after graduation. And he says they don't send people to die. And this kid is like, well, Sorengale and the other ones didn't die. And Imogen's like, 2 of us did die. And Devera actually says, like, when you can use lightning as your signet, you can talk to me then. It's like, yeah.
In other words, Violet's special.
Yeah, of course. We also hear that Samara was actually attacked by riders a few days ago. And by flyers, a few days ago. So by griffins. And no riders were injured. But flyers were looking for weapons. And Violet is kind of like taking all of this as like her fault. Because like, if she didn't, I guess, get captured and then take everybody away, then they'd still be supplying the flyers with like a few daggers here and there, so they wouldn't have to attack. And also, like, with Xaden gone, I guess Xaden and Garrick, I don't know who else might have come from Samara.
Yeah,
there might have been others, but she's like taking this all as her fault. And like,
of course she does. Her and Xaden are the same.
And Brennan also says that the Venin have actually, like, set up a base in Zolia, which is new for them. They don't normally, like, keep to a base. They kind of just move around. But at this point, they're, like, keeping a base, going out, doing their shit, coming back to their base. And I'm pretty sure we don't get it, but I think last week they said Zolia is where, like, the school is for the flyers. Yeah. And I think that comes up next week. So Violet, like, looks at a map and she thinks, like, Taryn could fly to the Viscount's, like, lands in 12 hours. And he says that he could do it in 10. And Andarna asks if he can carry a luminary. And he says that the question insults him. And she asks if he can carry a luminary while insulted. And it's just peak. I love it so much. It's one of my favorite lines.
And Darna's legit so sassy.
She's so sassy. I fucking love it. Sometimes I love it. Other times I'm like, ugh,
teenagers.
Why? Yeah. Taryn then tells Violet that riders are approaching and Tiny is leading them. And Tiny is Mira's dragon. So Violet, like, starts running. They're all told to go to, like, the Great Hall because they think they're under attack. But she's like, I need to go see. So she just starts running outside. And then Tiny lands in front of her and other dragons land around her. And then Taryn lands next to her and just takes, like, Tiny's throat in his mouth. And Violet's just like, whoa, this is intense. But Violet says, like, dismount peacefully, and Tiny lives. And Myra says that they're all coming peacefully. And she jumps down, and she gives Violet a hug, and she apologizes for not listening to her. Because, like, last week, she was like, hey, do you remember those stories about Venom and stuff? And she's like, you should sleep.
She's like, I think you've had too much excitement and stress.
Yeah. So I do love this. Like, we know that, like, Myra didn't know. So I do appreciate that. And she apologizes to Violet for not listening, and then she says, so you really stole half the cadets and killed the vice commandant? And Violet's like, well, Dane killed him. I just finished him off. Like, I guess. And Violet asks if she knew before, and Myra says she didn't know until the wyvern were dropped at Samara. And then their mother came and told all the riders the truth and gave them an hour to decide if they wanted to stay or if they wanted to leave.
Which is wild.
Which is like
her mother is going to get in trouble.
Oh my God, so much trouble. But, like, I did not expect that from her mother. And then, behind her, Myra sees Brennan. And he, like, opens his arms to give her a hug. And she just full-on punches him straight in the face. Which I love. And then we get an excerpt from the journal. And it's, like, the excerpt. And it's the blood of life of the 6 and the 1 combined, and set the stone ablaze in an iron rain. So this is translated by Violet. And I'm like, the blood of life of the 6 and the 1 combined. Like, she translated even that part and didn't really think about that part. Because later she's like, the 6 strongest riders. And I'm like, well, how is that the 6 and the 1?
Yeah, anyway. This riddle is going to keep coming back. Yeah.
So yeah, Myra broke Brennan's nose, and they're, like, squabbling and arguing with each other. And a guard, like, goes to grab Myra, but Brennan's like, no, this is a family matter.
Can he mend himself?
And it comes up. And Myra's like, well, families don't let each other think they're dead for 6 years. And
valid.
She's completely right. I completely agree with this whole assessment. But somebody calls him, like, Lieutenant Colonel, and she's like, oh, at least playing dead earned you rank. She's so pissed, and I'm here for it.
I love it so much.
Me too. And Brennan orders them to, like, send out any riders they can to scout for deserters or attackers, because, like, Myra got here because Xaden helped her, but there could be other people looking to meet with them or coming out to attack them because they left. So they're like, we should try to see what we can see. And Brennan's just like, after that, he's like, I can't believe you hit me. And he says it's hard to mend himself, but it's easier to mend other people. But it seems like he can still do it. And she's just like, cry about it the same way we had to cry about you being dead, and burn all your shit. And, like, our mother became a shell of herself, and our father died because of you. Yeah. And he just says, like, our father would understand, and he hopes that his death haunts their mother forever. Like, damn. And Myra's just like, she says she understands why their mother lied to keep them safe. And Brennan says, you weren't killed. And she says, neither were you. But the way he worded it, I'm like, was he actually killed? Because he said you weren't killed. So, like, are we thinking, like, is something going to come back here that, like, he was actually killed and someone, like, like, no, I forget the guy's name. Whoever Taryn's previous guy was.
Or not, isn't it something weird like that?
It starts with an N, yeah. And I wanted to say Nolan, and I'm like, nope, that's the other guy. But I'm like, there has to be something else there. Like, he turned Venom. We kind of think a little bit could be the case, because anytime they bring him up, Taryn is like, I don't speak about him. And we're like, yeah, so he probably turned Venom to save Brennan. And they were potentially lovers? There's so many things. But anyway, it just is weird that he's like, you weren't killed. And she's like, neither were you. And then Violet kind of cuts in. And I'm like, was he actually killed? That's like where my brain is on that.
He wasn't he, though? Because he was assumed dead, so I thought he literally was on death's door the same way.
Yeah, but, like, being on death's door and, like, actually dying and being brought back to life. So I kind of wonder what that means. But anyway, Violet cuts in then, and she's like, guys, fuck off. Like, he was a new lieutenant at the time, and then she tells him to stop being a stubborn ass, and everyone's, like, shocked, because she's the quiet one of them, and she never speaks up. And
no, like, she's not.
Not anymore, my guys. And then Xaden just says that he used to think that he wanted siblings, which I love. And Violet goes straight over to him and asks if he's all right, and he says he is now. And he kisses her, and Brennan's like, seriously, right in front of me? And Mira's just like, that's tame for them.
How does she know?
Because remember last week when he was like, if you want any chance of talking later, you have to kiss me right now. And they, like, made out.
Yeah, but...
I know. But it's just funny. Violet kind of has, like, a realization that everyone she truly loves is here and safe. And it's the second moment this week that we're like, oh, she doesn't fucking love her mother at all.
Sin.
And then she says, she needs the blood of the 6 most powerful riders. And everyone's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then Xaden is like, ever? Or like living right now? And she's like, I think in residence is fine. I just love how he's like, yes.
He just takes it. He's like, yep, sure,
everything. Yeah, anything you need, I will get it for you. Like, if you need... 6 most powerful riders ever, I'll dig up those bodies. He's ready to go, like... So, yeah. So, 9 of them assemble, like, the whole assembly, Bodhi and Violet, go to go to the Wordstone. And, of course, on the way, everyone second guesses why they're listening to her, and you're like, because she's the only one that can fucking read the goddamn journal. Like, of course you're listening to her. But, you know, of course, they're all being dicks. And then someone's like, we should be using this time to discuss the Viscount's terms. And Brennan says that the Viscount wants them to arm him and to come to his aid. And he'll give them the Luminary as a trade. And Xaden's like, no, he won't. And Brennan's like, he just wants to see Violet wield. And Xaden says that they'll need to find another Luminary because Xaden will meet Malik before... No. Because the Viscount will meet Malik before he meets Violet.
Yikes.
And we're like, okay, he's very serious about that. And he also tells Brennan that, like, Brennan knows better. Like, the Viscount collects things, so he's going to try to collect Violet. Like, okay. So they're kind of arguing about it, but Violet's like, I don't mind going. And he's like, I'm not listening to you.
It's not your choice.
Basically. So they get to the Wordstone, and it's like a giant cavern, and there's runes all around, and like there's a massive stone, and she's like, is that onyx? And I'm like, is this gonna come up? Is this something to do with the new book name? But Xaden says that his father thought that it was polished iron, so I'm like, oh, is this nothing? Maybe it's nothing. Don't know. So they make a circle around it, and she reads the same passage we just read of, like, the 6 and the 1, their life, Iron Rain. And they decide that Xaden, Felix, Suri, Bodhi, and Violet and Brennan are the 6 most powerful. And she says the 6 bleed their life. And she's like, just a little bit of blood. Like, clearly they were alive after they set up the wards, or we wouldn't have this journal. So they cut their palms and put them against the stone, and nothing happens. And she really starts to spiral in this moment. And she tells Xaden that she failed, but he says she'll try again. And Brennan goes to heal her palm, but she doesn't let him because she wants the scar.
Jeez.
Right? And Bodhi kind of tells her, like, this is a lost magic, and also, like, maybe there's a reason that the stone was never turned into, like, a ward. Like, maybe there's something wrong with the stone, and that's why. And I guess the rest of the assembly are kind of talking, and they decide to offer the Viscount double the weapons he asked for, and hope that, like, he'll accept that instead of meeting with Violet. But also, it's interesting that, like, so the assembly has Felix and Suri in it, and they're the 2 of the strongest, and then Xaden and Violet and Brennan. But it's interesting that Bodhi is also one of the, like, strongest riders, because I'm like, I would have assumed Garrick would be super strong. Or, like, Devera, or, like, maybe another prop.
But,
like, I don't know.
I
it's just interesting that
don't understand what they're using to determine strength. Like, I get Violet and Xaden, because, like, they have really unique signets that are really powerful, and, like, Violet has 2 dragons. So, but, like, other than that, I don't really understand, like, what's their measure for strength.
Yeah, I don't get it either. But they decided that. But it's just interesting, yeah. So Violet kind of continues to spiral, and she thinks, like, she's never failed anything before, especially, like, something to do with scribe stuff, like, with translating, that kind of shit. Like, this is her jam. She knows this shit. And then Felix walks over and asks to see her hand, and he sees that it's trembling, and he says, they better start training tomorrow. And I'm like, oh, interesting. So now he's going to be the new Professor Carr.
Hopefully he's not going to be a dick about it.
Right? I guess we'll see. I don't really remember. So Brennan walks with her as they're leaving, and he says that she has the same look on her face as she did when she was 8, and she stared her mom down for 12 hours over not wanting to eat squash. And the next morning when he woke up, their parents were asleep at the table, and she was snacking on bread and cheese. We're like, okay, she's stubborn, I guess.
Yeah.
And he says he's not going to leave her alone when she's looking like this. So she says that he can come along and be, like, the tag-along sibling for once. And she, like, talks to Taryn and says, like, this is the only way. And he says he'll consider it. And then she walks to the Great Hall and finds Mira and asks for help. And I don't at all remember what she's asking for help with.
Really?
But that's where we end.
Jeez, even I remember that.
I don't know why. Oh, yeah. I guess I should. I think I do now. But originally I did not.
There you go.
So yeah, that's it for this week.
Lovely.
Yeah. So yeah, if you want to get in touch with us and share your thoughts on anything you heard in our episodes, or if you have any book suggestions, please reach out to us by email at coffeeandcoread@gmail.com, or on Instagram or Facebook at coffeeandcoread, and coffee.coread on TikTok.
So next week we will be reading Iron Flame chapters 40 to 52. So make sure to follow along, and if you're enjoying our chats, don't forget to follow, rate, and review wherever you get our content. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll see you on that next page.